All right, Bet Online is your number one source for the NBA and NHL playoffs this season. Every stat, every matchup, and even odds while the games are being played. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in the game on blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our over 150 slot games. Head to website today to get in on the action. Don't forget to use the promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet online. The game starts here. Please bet responsibly. All right. All right, Matt, you ready?
I'm ready. Always ready.
All right. I got to get in podcast mode. Let's do this. All right. Yo, Sneak This Podcast, episode 361. Obviously, this is a home episode. Got back to record episodes every single week for everyone. We have a special guest coming in on Skype today. We got the homie Matt Frates from the Footwear Sneaker Podcast. How you doing, sir?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. I won't lie to you. When I messaged you and offered up my services, I assumed that it would be like in a baseball team where you really need that last guy. And it'll be like, yeah, they'll never call me. And then you're like, hey, how about 2 weeks? And I was like, oh, all right. So I did not expect that to happen. So I'm very appreciative of the time and just to kind of chop it up. I mean, it's been a long weekend, and this is my last social engagement of the weekend.
No, I appreciate you reaching out. I mean, I always like be a little bit wary about like making that offer because like I get overwhelmed with like how many messages that come in, and I try to keep them in order. And I even like started a calendar. I started writing them down, and anybody that can like accommodate my time is like I appreciate it. And I'm like, you've done the podcast for quite some time and stuff like that, and I have other people that want to be on too, but like sort of like a feeling. And when you reached out, I was like, you know what, I got a good feeling about this. I enjoy his show. He does the one on the solo podcast, which a couple of people that I know do that, and I appreciate that. And every once in a while when I do the solo episodes myself, you know what I mean, like it's sort of like a a sneaker podcast fraternity, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So but no, man, I'm glad you were able to join and come on and let my guests hear a different perspective on things and stuff like that. So
Yeah, and I respect people's time. So when I make an offer of my time, it's because I have decided that that person is willing. Like, I mean, you and I both don't have a lot of time. You're a family man. I'm a family man. We're the same age, I think. And when somebody wastes my time, they're out. So I've had that happen in the pod world before where it's like, oh, you need to come on, and they're not ready. They're not prepared. And I sit there for 2 hours, and it was a meaningless situation. And so when I offered, it's because I respect your time and I knew that you needed to be, on your time and all that. And I'm like, hey, if I can make it happen, I'm gonna make it happen and try to add value to your listener base, which is vastly larger than mine.
we've done. I remember one time we had a guest on the podcast who was dying to get on the podcast and whatnot. This was early on. We were like, okay, cool, we'll call in. And I messaged them. I said, hey, get ready to call in. They were still at work. Like, so they were on their AirPods at work helping customers while I'm like, that's not how I thought this was going to go. And then when they got off, they got in their car and were driving and were trying to talk to us while they were driving. And then they got home and started feeding their dog. And I was like, this isn't what I expected. Like, no, like we've had episodes where we've had actual guests come to the studio and didn't say a word. Like I edited them out the entire episode. And I was like, dude, like you can't, there's a lot of people that have super duper strong personalities on social media and they're on it on social media. They got the personality, they have all of the above. And then when it's time to like really get into the situation and face to face and talk, they're not ready for it. So
And
but
we're gonna get into this though, but like so many people think they have the energy to do what we do. And I'm the opposite. Like if it were up to me, I wouldn't use social media at all because it's just
100%.
not my bag. I'm corny, as George would say. Like I'm one of those people where like if I were to try to do social media, it'd be bad. Like it'd be real bad and it wouldn't do any service. So I only use it begrudgingly, but once the lights and the mics are on, I'm ready to go. So I'm the exact opposite of those guys that you're talking about.
Oh yeah, which is funny because like when people listen to the podcast and stuff like that, they they see how I am on the podcast and stuff like that. Like I always say, like I got to get in podcast mode because I'm not the same off the podcast. Like my New Year's resolution was to be more fun. Like I'm not really a fun person. Like, oh my God, I almost wore the exact same shirt. Thank goodness I didn't. Shout out to the
Oh,
homie.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Funny story about this shirt. I bought from him last year. I think he was on the pod. I think he was on Sneak Disc, and I liked what he was doing, and I liked the for lack of a better term, the vision of what
Yeah.
he was putting out. Right. So
Right.
I messaged him, said followed him, whatever. Bought I think it was a yellow hoodie, and I was gonna bring it to London because we were gonna go to England. And
Okay.
then he messages me and says like, "Hey, I threw something in there for you," and it was this shirt. Like he comped
Oh,
me
nice.
this shirt, and this shirt is awesome. And so
I love that
I
shit.
I haven't worn it in a minute. So I was like, it's perfect time because I like also being able to shout at other creators too, and whenever I can. So that's why I
Oh, yeah.
put this on. But I didn't think about you also owning the shirt. That would have been perfect to be honest.
I thought about it. I was like, dang, I should wear this one. I was like, it's kind of wrinkled. Like it was super duper wrinkled. It was kind of bald. And I was like, I just grab this Miami real quick.
You changed shirts a
Like,
couple weeks ago. What's the problem?
but like I was saying though, with what we do is, like the time and the value and it does matter. You know what I mean? And I always tell people that like I wouldn't be on social media if it wasn't for the podcast, to be honest with you. It took me forever to get a Facebook page. Like I probably didn't. All my friends and everybody were on social media. They're on Facebook, and I was like, for what? Like I just didn't see the value in it. And even right now, I don't really see the value in it right now. I get it. It connects with other people, and like I said, through the podcast and social media, I've made like there's a couple cats that like I consider like friends now. Like,
Same.
I visited them out of town. Like they've come here. Like I know their wives. Like, it's like I consider them almost like family now. You know what I mean? So it is a upside to it, but I just don't have the patience for it. You know what I mean? Like all the sneakers that we talk about, all the sneakers that I have, I never post what I'm wearing hardly. I never take a on foot pic. It's rare that I do it. And even in those sense, it's like I just don't feel like it. I'm such a perfectionist that like if it doesn't look a certain way, it'll drive me nuts the rest of the day. And I'm like, okay, I can't do this. And there's sometimes that like I participate like this past, I don't know, February, somebody was doing like a Black History Month thing, like, sneakers or something on Twitter. And I participated for a while. I think I got to like, it was like supposed to do it every single day for the month. I think I got up to, I think her name is Jaleesa. I think that's her name on social media. Um, and I think I got up to like maybe 15 days, 10 days. And after that, once I forgot one day, it was downhill from there. Like
Yep.
I couldn't get back into it. And then even then, I didn't want to, I think the goal was to like post them like you actually wearing them, but I never wear my sneakers. Like I try my best to wear them, but I'm a Vans guy. I just wear Vans. I wear Vans all the time. Like that's my go-to. I wore a pair of New Balance to dinner with George and his wife on a Saturday, and I put a pair of New Balance on. I couldn't remember the last time I put a new pair of New Balances on. Like, and I just was like, oh, I'm gonna throw these on the day. And I honestly, I felt uncomfortable. I know they looked fine, but I felt uncomfortable because they weren't Vans. You know what I mean? So
It's out of your comfort zone now because I feel like we're creatures of habit, you and I. So like I post my shoes more than I'm comfortable with. Let's put it that way. And it almost forces me to put on something other than what I would normally put on. Because last year I wore a pair of Wave Runners literally every single day in some form or fashion, and I glued them multiple times and just kept putting them back on, and then finally I threw them away. And people were like, "What do you mean you threw them away?" I'm like, "I used them. Imagine that. Like I used a shoe that I bought for that purpose." And I get that way where like my rotation is like 3 pairs and it's like, I don't want to deviate from that because if I do, and I feel weird too. Like sometimes I'll wear something, I'm like, people are looking at me, but nobody's looking at me though.
yeah, I know it's like I start buying my clothes specifically for like Vans old school, and then my pants when I'm like, oh, let me try on this Jordan 5 for whatever reason, and I'm like, these pants don't go with this Jordan 5. I bought these pants specifically for my old school Vans, and then I'm like, Well, shoot, and I don't wear shorts often. Like, I'm not a shorts guy. I try, and we live in Arizona. It's hot here, but I'll wear pants all year long. Like, I've never been a shorts guy. You know what I mean? And then even when like I do wear like I work out or something like that, I put shorts on. I got a tights under it. Like I just the actual shorts and my legs. It's rare. Like it's rare. And like I remember somebody was like, "Man, you wear the same shorts all the time." I'm like, "Dude, I think I own three." Like I may own three pair of shorts. Like I'm not even joking. And I said this summer, oh no, I'm gonna buy more shorts. I'm gonna get more shorts. I'm gonna do it. But man, I'm still buying pants. So, but
Be true to who
anyways,
you are,
so
my man.
I'm trying, you know. So, but man, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. Like I said, I appreciate Believe for letting us have this platform to do this show. Like, share, subscribe, both our podcasts. You know, he's been doing podcasting for a long time, man. It's a solo setup, which I admire a lot. You know, I started doing solo episodes every once in a while when George couldn't make the podcast. You know, a lot of people don't understand. Like you said, you're a family man, I'm a family man. George and I live about an hour away from each other. You know what I mean? So, you know, we record at a studio that's central because we work kind of close to the studio. I mean, we work in the exact same place. So there are times George has to work late at night, or if George is sick, or I'm sick, or whatnot, or if my day off or whatnot. If I'm off, I'm not gonna drive an hour to the studio. You know, I'm like, hey, I'll just throw an episode together at in the closet real quick for the listeners. You know, and a lot of people sometimes don't understand that because, you know, the one thing about people love asking, like, yo, how do you start a podcast? Advice, podcast. And I always tell them the number one thing is come back the next day. That's the number one thing. If you say you're gonna do an episode on Tuesday, do an episode on Tuesday. Don't be that podcast that don't show up for whatever reason. And George and I have that understanding. It's like, you know, hey, he can't make it. The listeners are the most important thing. If they're waiting for you on that, because they wait for you. You know, podcasters, they wait for you. Like I wait for specific podcasts I listen to when I get in the car Monday or Tuesday morning, because I don't work Mondays anyway. I get in the car on Tuesdays and I'm like, I refresh my thing because I'm looking for specific podcasts. And if they don't got a new episode, I'm bothered. Like it throws my morning off. Like I've stopped listening to music, you know. I pretty much listen to podcasts all day and things like that. And, you know, it that understanding of like when you have your own content that we'll talk about content and creation. We'll get to it though. So let's talk pickups real quick. So, you know, this is your first time on the podcast. You grab anything recently or anything, you know?
Oh, I did. And I also brought them with me too.
Oh,
So
okay.
I could show you what I got going on. So coming into this year, I did an episode where I talked about buying less and sort of enjoying more. And so when I looked at what was coming out this year, I was like, there are two shoes that I absolutely must have, right? Because I don't have the room to like have a collection and I like to wear things. And so I try to be reasonable.
Right.
So the first pickup I had was the Reimagined 4s.
Right.
One of my favorite shoes of all time, better than the original. So
I
that's right. I
agree.
said that.
I agree. I
Couldn't be better. Oh,
say one. It's better than the original, and I love the original, but that material that the original was made out, it didn't age well for me. It just, you know, it got
no.
dusty. It looked like it got faded after a while.
Right
11,
behind me is a pair of them, and they got ashy, and I don't even know how. Like I just picked them up one day, and they were cracked, and that I copped those driving on the sneakers app. Like that's like my most famous sneakers app win of all time. And the fact that I can't use them anymore. And when these came in, my wife's like, "Well, you have those," and I'm like, "I can't wear those. I can
right.
wear these. Like these will forever be better. They're just." And you know what? Nike actually nailed it. They nailed it with the execution of it because like sometimes you think, "Ooh, well, that's gonna be good," and then they come out and you're like, "Man, this sucks."
Yeah.
You get
And
them in hand.
and that was the thing, and I had the mindset of like the white cement is leather. Why is a black one just so far out there for people? Everybody was like, "No, it's insane." I'm like, the white one's leather. It doesn't. Why is that so crazy? You know what I mean? And we always love premium leather. We love premium good, and it was good premium. I like the shape of the shoe.
Yes.
I thought it was
Oh,
good. When I had
executed perfectly, in my
when I had
opinion.
bought the OG from sneakers, and I've said this numerous times on the podcast, like I felt like something was wrong with mine. Like my right shoe was better than my left shoe. And I used to joke with George. I'm like, man, I feel like these are fakes. Like something is off with these. I was never comfortable in them. They never felt right. Now I haven't put on the Reimagine yet, so I can't tell you how those feel on me yet. But them joints is fire. They're executed perfectly, just like you said.
They are, and I was just very impressed, and I thought I have to have them, and I got them. So it's funny is I think I got them on. I think was there a shock drop or excuse me the shock drop of those? I
I
feel like there was.
Yeah, I think there was.
And there you go. For some reason, Apple is celebrating what I just did there. I don't know what that was all about. And I got to the shock drop 20 minutes late and still
Oh,
copped.
really?
Still copped. I was like
Oh,
2 clicks and it was there. And I was like, what's going on? Like, I wish I could have this kind of luck doing literally anything else, but
was it exclusive access? Maybe it was exclusive
no,
access.
because I would never get exclusive access. Like I
Oh,
don't cop enough to get exclusive access, at least based off of like what their criteria is. Like you have to have. I always laugh when that happens because it's like, oh, you have to have lost like these 17 releases, and I'm like, well, I don't try for all those, so I'll never get exclusive access.
I don't believe any of that stuff they say with that stuff. It's they don't. Nobody has the time to try to figure that out at Nike. And if they have some type of algorithms and things that they put together to try to determine that, we're talking about millions and millions and millions of accounts. And
Yes,
I mean, for myself personally, I only have one sneakers account, but I know people
same.
with in double digits. So it's
Nope.
like it's a lot of that stuff to me is marketing, feel good to make you feel like you have a better shot. And I understand it. Like I'm not knocking it or whatever, but it's just in those situations I hold it with a grain of salt. You know what I mean? I've
Yes.
had that exclusive access before plenty of times in the past, and it's like you have until 5 p.m. to buy them. And when I've had that access, and I'm like, I thought about it the rest of the day because I always assume that exclusive access and giving me 5 p.m. means that my 9.5 is gonna be there by
Yes.
5 p.m. Just, and I'd be like, what, about like around 4 o'clock, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and buy them. And it's like sold out. And I'm like, wait a minute, I thought I had till 5 p.m. Like that's what 5 p.m. means, not
It's
not anyways, we could a lot
I
of
know
that.
I do a lot of sneaker stuff because I hear a lot of complaints about the app and about how they don't win. And finally, I got fed
Mhm.
up with hearing about it, and so I did because I'm a statistician by trade, and so I did a math episode about here's if this many people go after the shoe, this is a realistic stock of this shoe. Here's your chance, and it was like you have less than a 2% chance to get it if all is
Right.
equal. And it's like remember that Nike's not picking and choosing who's getting wins and who's getting losses. It's just it is what it is. Like too many people are going after it, so I started. But anyway, I just got lucky that time. So the other pickup I had
Guys,
were the
I'm
military
sorry,
force.
sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You do stats professionally? Like,
Yes, let's just say that
oh,
I do stats professionally now, or I've been doing it for. Ooh, I've had the same, not the same job, but I've been at the same place. Like I work for the government, and let's just say that I know how to count people. I'll just put it that way.
um, goodness, we may be the same person. So
Yes. So I
I
have worked
do,
for that agency for a long time, done a bunch of stuff, trade stats, geography stuff, like everything.
yeah. So I currently move positions, but I've been with the same place for about 17 years doing statistics. Um, GIS,
Hmm. Yeah.
and do a lot of stuff like that. I use Crystal Reports, SSRS, a lot of things like that doing specific work. You know what I mean? I'll never tell anybody on this podcast what it is. I'm pretty
Sure.
confident, well, maybe figured it out. I may have said it before. Anybody that knows me and we talk and stuff like that, I tell them all the time. But like, you know
Yes.
what I mean? But I currently switched over to the technology side of it right now. So what I do, so right now building our programs and stuff that are being used by, specific areas in our department. But yeah, okay. Well, that's
Yeah.
interesting.
Oh
So
yeah. Yeah. I've been at the same place. That's where I met my wife, kind of like you and George work at the same place. My wife and I work at the same place, but we have never been in the same orbit. So it's never a problem because there's so many people that work there, you know what I mean?
right. Yeah, yeah.
And so anyway, so I got the military force that I just
Yep.
showed right there. That was on my list too because it's so clean. Like
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yep, I have a pair of those. I haven't got here yet. Like the homie has them at his house. He's waiting to send them with a few other things, but they were a must cop. Like, you know what I
Yep.
mean? Like, I feel like Military 4 is one of those ones that have been rumored for so long to come out with the Nike Air on the back and all that. And I could think back, man, almost double digit years, like those have been rumored to come back. And then they just never did. And they finally did. So I feel like you had to, you know what I
Yep.
mean?
And I wore them pretty much right away. Like they were on feet like right away. And the reimagines are more comfortable than the military fours. I don't know what that's all about, but they are. So just for everybody who's looking to cop. And this next one, I blame you guys because you talked about them a couple weeks ago that they were still in stock on Undefeated, and I had forgotten about them.
Oh, I saw your post on them.
And then I was like, these right here,
Yeah.
These are fire. Like, these are just, maybe not this colorway for everybody, but they executed this amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, like I went on there. What's funny is that we talked about them in that episode, and then a few people messaged me. So I forgot who we talking in that episode. I don't remember, but they were like, go on there and double check, and they were like, because they keep popping up. So I went on that episode and I saw my size in the black pair in a 9.5, and I was like, oh crap, and it was like all sold out up to 9.5, and then like below 9.5, like a few sold out, and then there was some bigger sizes. And then someone else messaged me and was like, man, how do they fit? And I was like, I have no idea. I haven't put them on yet. He was like, they got a 9.5 left in the black pair. And I was like, crap. Like, and I think he might have copped them or whatnot. I didn't go in there and buy them. But yeah, like, I had bought that colorway first, the one that you just showed, the Ancho or whatever it's called. And
Yeah.
I mean, fire. You know what I mean? Like, I got the olive pair, and then there's another pair that I have. Oh, the teal turquoise one or whatnot.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, and I think overall, probably the black pair is probably the best pair. I didn't buy it yet. I'm gonna get it eventually, but like, but it's fire. It's done really well, and I appreciate collaboration brands using other models. You know what I mean? Like, they could have easily done a Jordan 1 again or a Kobe. They could have done something they've done many times, but like to step outside to something different, like I always appreciate that. So,
But like the culture, I think sometimes as a whole doesn't appreciate that. Like, they think it's I don't know what it is. Like, because Union's done that a couple of times where they've tried to do different models, and people are like, those are trash. And I'm like, because it's not something that the sheep are used to going after. It's not fire. And I'm like, this is a fire shoe. Now, my wife completely disagreed, and I said, don't do that. Don't do that. I don't need that opinion. But it's like, I'm trying new things here. Like, just give me credit for that. I think that's worthy of getting credit for.
Yeah, and like the one thing I'll say about like brands that do try new things is that the one thing that bothers me a little bit by it is, and we'll talk about history and stuff like that, is that like they'll introduce things that people just like aren't aware of yet. You know what I mean? So it's like Nike bringing back like the Field General, okay? That the Field General, and people are like, oh, they're bringing that back to try to compete with Adidas and the Samba or whatnot. Whether you agree with that or not, I don't know. I don't, but it is what it is. The Field General is legit when you would watch like the Detroit Lions and like the Dome playing on that AstroTurf, or the Minnesota Vikings play. Like, it was when AstroTurf hurt, like that real turf shoe. And those were shoes that like you used to see at Ross and Marshalls on the shelves and like size 22 and stuff like that. So then like when those come out of nowhere and you don't put any like, and I don't want to get too deep into our conversation beforehand, but like you don't put any background to it, you're kind of like, what the heck is this? Because you're not going to bring in this new generation if they're like, no thanks. They look at how it looks only. They look at it and go, no thanks. And I look at that and go like, good Lord. Like, I remember that from when I was a kid. You know what I mean? So it's like this, they're not bridging the gap between the new sneakerhead, the younger generation, and like the older ones. It's a weird place right now. Like, and I don't think people really recognize it because they're just buying. They don't really recognize a lot of that stuff, which is fine. You know what I mean? But we'll talk about it in a little bit. So those are all your pickups. That's all you got?
That's all I got.
Okay. I would have brought them in the house, but like I talk about on this podcast numerous times, I buy stuff and they just sit in the garage or they sit in my car for days. And these have been, I got the Weathermans. Like,
oh, yeah,
so
yeah.
the Weathermans came in and something else came in too. And they were just in the backseat of the car, just rolling around. And I just finally put them in the garage. I would have brought them in right now, but so I did get those. And what's funny with those is because, man, like when you look at the Weatherman today, you go, what on earth am I going to do with this bright green shoe with this heat mapping on it, and a part of it takes you back to that era of when just the feeling of how sneakers felt back then, not necessarily like that shoe in particular was awesome, but like we're gonna do. Oh, and I'm sorry, we're doing a top 10 episode on our favorite sneakers. Top 10 list, favorite best stories, sneakers, story
Sure.
history,
Sure.
something down that line. And and I have a phenomenal story about the Weatherman that isn't necessarily about the Weatherman. You know what I mean? Like, and that was like when I messaged you and I said I'm doing my list based off of like cultural stories, like things personal, cultural, and some of them are the history of the sneaker. But like when I look at the Weatherman, I think about me and George camping outside, arguing with security. You know, it was like five multiple lines at the mall because nobody knew which line was the true line to actually get in line for these. And it takes me back to that era of when like stores used to legit lie to you. Like the employees would lie to you. They would do everything in their power to try to deter you from actually coming to get them because they wanted them too. And I remember the employee actually trying to tell me, yo, just Nike's lying to you. If you go to Nike in Scottsdale, they secretly got pairs. And they didn't. He was trying to get us to not come in line because he wanted to get his pairs. You know what I mean? And that's the era that we grew up in. And you had to make a decision. Do you trust him or not? And there were people that would trust him. This is back when they would leave the phone off the hook. They wouldn't answer it. They wouldn't give you any dates. They wouldn't show you the sneaker. Man, you walk into a sneaker store now, like they got all the new releases like already lined up in the back. You could look at them. Like it's way different times. So, but I did get the Weatherman. You know, I said in like one of the last episodes, I've turned into more of a collector than an actual sneakerhead anymore because I wear what I wear, but I just have such a connection and history to sneakers is that I feel like if I want it, I'm going to get it. I'm in a great place in my life to where I can, and I'm going to do it. Now, I will say that this is way too much, like all these sneakers. It's overwhelming. But anyway, so that's the only thing I got this week. And there was something else that it came to, but I don't know what it was. It could have been a van.
I was going to say Vans.
It could have been a van. It could have been a Chuck Taylor. I have no idea what it was.
Love those.
But anyway, so yeah, that's all I got this week. So but I'll do releases real quick. I thought about skipping releases. You want to do releases or mind doing releases or?
So I don't mind doing a few if you don't mind just because
Yeah.
I like giving opinions about them because it kind of feeds into what we're going to talk about a little bit later.
You want to do it?
Oh, I can pull up the crappy Goat app here if you want.
Yeah, go ahead. You go ahead and do it.
Oh, let's see. All right. So
what
the hell is the date today? The 27th. So we're going a full week?
Let's do it.
What'd you guys go up to last time? Because I got the Young Bucks pump. That was for today. So I think you guys already talked about that.
We stopped at the Young Bucks pump. Yeah.
No, thanks. All right. Let's see. We got the Civilist Adidas ZX 6001. I cannot pronounce that lifestyle. Bruna Strasse or something like that.
Oh, no. Not mad at the shoe, though. It's okay.
No, it's all right. Oh, good Lord. Looks like a Club C. Is that
yeah, it looks like
a Reebok Club C. No branding on it though. It looks like it's just all white. The hymn? Revenge Chalk, something like that. It's all right.
Yeah, all right.
And then I think it looks like they have another Classic Nylon Plus Ash. That one, I don't know what's going on with that one. That's got it's trying to be like a Sakai, but also a Yeezy at the same time. Like it's got that like earthy look. Yeah, you know what? Like I said, I'm not mad at it, but I'm not interested. All right, now we got the Air Jordan 1 Retro High OG Latte.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice.
It is nice. It's funny because a lot of people are like thinking about what was the one? The not the Travis Mocha, but the one that came out a couple years after that.
Whatever it was called. Yeah.
Oh my God. Like I cannot tell you. Because back at that time I was kind of in reconnaissance doing like in the replica market, whatever. People were just stupid buying those things. Like you would not believe. And it was because I don't know, like I have no idea. And it was nice, but it kind of reminds me that people are trying to steer you toward that. And I don't agree. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah. And there was I think they said that's the number one most replicated sneaker of all time. The Mocha 1 High, not the Travis, but the regular general release black toe mocha, whatever you want to call it. And I think it's funny that they're calling these ones latte. It's like mocha latte. I don't know what's next, but hey, look, they're fine. You know what I mean? I feel like once you put the black toe on the front of a Jordan 1, you really can't make a bad one. You know
No,
what I mean? It's like it's it,
but
it's a black.
controversial thought by me is once you've seen a black toe Jordan 1, you kind of seen them all, and I know you feel the way about dunks.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. Like, you know what I mean? It's why that's why like with the Rust Pinks that I came out with Art Basel, I just didn't understand why those were so highly revered. It's a black toe. Like the black toe on the Jordan 1, anything with a black toe is what makes it a black toe. That's why we call it a black toe. Like
Yes.
we don't call uh Jordan 1 black toes, we don't call them whatever the red varsity red or whatever the color is in the back of a black toe Jordan 1. We call it a black toe. This is a black toe with an accent color in the back. That's all it is to me. And
Yeah,
it doesn't take away from it. Like I don't think these are bad whatsoever. It's just if I got a black toe something, I'm good. You know what I mean?
I do. Let's see. Next, we got the Teddy Santis New Balance 993, made in the USA, Sea Salt Black.
Man, I like them, but you know.
I feel I struggle with New Balance because I think they went through a period where it was like, all right, just pretty much like fire, 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 fire. And then like everything, a New Balance comes out and it's like, am I supposed to feel hyped about this? Because it looks like a New Balance and what makes it stand out from other stuff. And, you know, like I said, these are nice, but uh, they don't stand out in a way that's like got must cop. Like they're just so good that I must cop. I don't know. Maybe I'm
Yeah,
missing the boat.
that's the thing with New Balance and Asics is that like I had talked about it one other episode was that like we give New Balance and Asics a lot of grace. Like you never really hear anybody go like, oh, a New Balance 992 is dead. Like you never hear that because the model would I don't know why. Like we'll say a dunk is dead, we'll say other things are dead, but we will never say like, oh, the Gel Light 3 is dead or the Gel Light 5 because the shoe themselves are pretty basic. You know, they're made for what they're made for. It's the colors and the attractiveness that draws, you know, your sneakerhead into it. The pinks and stuff like that. The pinks, the greens, the bright colors, and then the premium materials. So then, like when I see something like, you know, a sea salt black, you know, it's fine, but you know what I mean. It's like I can't say it's whack, but at the same time, I go like, okay, well, I'm pretty sure I have a New Balance that already looks like this. Like, you know what I mean? Like for whatever reason, we have no problem buying multiple pairs of like Jordan 4s. You know, we'll buy the white cement, the black cement, the military blue. We'll buy some other variations of it. And then with New Balances, for me personally, once I get like 2 of a model, maybe 3 of the same model, I'm good. Like I don't need 10 of those, but I got like 21 pairs of dunks. And I'm like, okay, it doesn't add up or whatever. But
I don't disagree.
yeah, and the price point on New Balances, which is funny, like that was always a thing with New Balance, how high expensive they were.
Yes.
But everything is so expensive now. Like it's, you know, I saw the new the taxi flip or whatever they want to call it now. Jordan 12 is 200. 200 for a Jordan 12 is crazy to me. Like, but I think wasn't a Reimagine's 220, I think, maybe.
Yeah,
Like,
you might be right. And I think we have, and maybe this gets into like later stuff, but we have sort of all just kind of gone with the price. And the price has kind of crept up very incrementally over the last 4, 5, maybe 6 years. And some of us are coming up for air and the next release, which is the Jordan 17 Lightning, $300. I can't. I can't.
First of all, the shoe for me personally, I've never cared for it that much. Now,
Mm-mm.
I'm okay with the 17. I had the
Sure.
first colorway, the blue colorway that had the strap, the removable strap across it, the high or mid, whatever you want to call it. It wasn't the low, had the suitcase. And that was back when it first came out originally. And I like that shoe. I don't think the shoe is bad. I don't think the 17 low Lightning is bad. I just never been like a something like I had to have one. Um, but if you're telling me that the low top is 300, then what will the mid be or the regular cut, the high cut, whatever? Because the idea of the low is that it's supposed to be cheaper than the regular cut. I don't get it. I seen a couple people do some video unboxings of this, and I thought, okay, well maybe it got like some bags, you know, some laces, like something. It's just suitcase and shoe and suitcase. That's it.
They are banking on the fact that people feel a way about a shoe because of nostalgia, because of when they used to have it or whatever. Because I think I posted this like a year. I mean, we found out this was coming out like a year and a half ago, and I was like, 300. Who's paying 300? And I got hit up by a lot of people. They're like, if it comes with the briefcase, it's a must cop. And I was like, wow, 300. Like we're blindly gonna say, yeah, 300. And I'm like, $300 isn't life changing money, but for some people, it is the difference between making ends meet and not.
Yeah, like the 300 is just more of a like it gets to point to where, I feel irresponsible at times with how much I buy with sneakers, but 300 is, I mean, what are we talking? And first of all, we're not even adding on tax and shipping or
No,
anything or things like, and to me is where I go back to the brands and I go to myself like, what I have to know answers for this for me personally. Like I'd be like, you're gonna have to explain to me the economics behind the 300. Like, did this shoe cost way more to make than these because some of the pieces, the suitcase, is the suitcase better? Because the suitcase that came with the original was awful. It was, I mean, you thumped it. If you thumped it really hard with your finger, really hard, you were gonna leave a dent or knock a panel off. It wasn't anything. So I'm like, is this suitcase metal? And I thought people sort of got out of the special box phase because there was a period of time where certain dunks and certain things like that, you would go on StockX and go, and the special box would only be like $10 more than a regular box, or sometimes lesser than a regular box. That suitcase to me, that briefcase means nothing because
no.
those are the items that stay at the house. Like, who cares? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like if I had the shoe and I went outside and told somebody I had the briefcase, who's to say I don't? Like all the things that people used to put a lot of stock in and bank in, the special box, the laces, that's at the house. I'm outside with
Yes.
the shoe. I can't walk around with the special box in my arm and all the additional pieces and Velcro and stickers and panels. And look, guys, it doesn't matter. That's at the house in the closet. That
I'm almost annoyed now when something comes with like the Sakai's. Good Lord, the box was massive
I
for some of
can't.
those, and I'm like, this doesn't. I had to change the way that I inventoried what I had because the box was so damn big.
It throws off the feng shui of my sneakers.
I hate it.
It's like I have to now put all these giant special boxes at the bottom because they're so big and have a wider base, and I got to stack the smaller ones above it. And then if I want to wear it, I got to yank that joint out crazy fast so the stack falls correctly. Like, you know what I mean? Anyways, it's crazy. Like 300, you're not gonna get 300 out of me.
Nope.
Like I
No.
don't think you can get 300 out of me. I mean, look, I can't tell you I wouldn't have paid it for the Union One at the time. I don't know. I can't tell you. I had Cos fours. I don't remember what the price on those were, but it was like 280 maybe. It wasn't three. I don't remember what it was. Cos fours.
I don't
Man,
know.
300 for a 17. Oh
It
man.
feels yeah. It's just I don't know. It feels dirty. Like $300 is like you're now swindling me. I feel irresponsible.
Yeah, that's the thing. I feel like more people should look at it that way. Like, wait a minute, Nike. Like, we appreciate you. We love the brand, but what are y'all doing now? Like, come on. Like, y'all know better than that. Like, anyways.
Well, let's move on to the Tatum 2 denim. Tatum
Yeah.
1 was better, I think, but I'm not mad at the Tatum 2.
Yeah, the Tatum one to me was way better. The two is fine. Not really keen on the colorways
Yeah.
yet, but yeah, all right.
It is what it is. Air
Yeah.
Max 186 Big Bubble Camo. I know a lot of people hate the Big Bubble. I personally don't care because I can't see it from on feet. So, you know,
I've heard people like, I think Rico, shout out to Rico, was like, oh, big bubbles are. I'm like, buddy, if you're walking down the street, that bubble is gonna. I don't know. Like, I will say these camel ones kind of came out of nowhere. I went on sneakers that
Mhm.
day and I seen it and I was like, what the heck? Something about these don't make them look like an Air Max One though. Like they
No,
look,
the shape looks weird.
the shape is a little bit off. It seems like it's a little bit lower profile. I mean, they're
Yes.
okay. They're a little bit tacky, but I don't know if I saw them at the outlet for like, $80, maybe $75, maybe. I don't know.
I'm telling you what, when they came out with the Big Bubble OG, like the OG colorway, like I had to have those, and I copped those while we were in London because I just happened to get them, and then we got back, and 2 weeks after we get back, we go to the Nike outlet. They're on the back wall, 20% off. My wife just goes, "Poop cop," and she loves them. She's an Air Max 1. She loves Air Max all day long. And so she was like 20% off. Yeah. And maybe that's too high of a bar for some people, but she was instant and she wears those all the time. I don't get the hate, but to each their own is what I say when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So the Harden 8 Dragon Boat Festival. Now, you always talk about the Hardens and say like you love them because they're recognizable. I went to NCAA tournament a couple months ago, and that shoe, one of the guys, I can't remember what team he was on. I think it was Michigan State. That's the only shoe I could see on the court. Like it was that recognizable on the court. And when I got back, you said that, and I was like, he's right, because that's all I see on this court, and it got me thinking about like signature shoes and like how they're made now. Because you guys talk about the book, and like the book is nice, but like there's so many factors, and maybe we'll get into that. But when I think of the Harden, it's like I couldn't wear them because I know it doesn't fit my aesthetic. But on court, it's all I can see, and I think that's a win in my opinion.
Oh, that's a 100% win, and that's what, and that goes back, and like you said, we'll talk about it. It goes back to that before the internet, before things, the way that like I used to see sneakers that I was curious about was watching basketball and being like, what the heck is that? What was that? The best way to get a view of a sneaker was to buy a basketball magazine. They had still photos of the game, or in the newspaper. That next morning in the newspaper, if back when they used to read the newspaper, a black and white picture of like Jordan jumping in the air, like, oh shoot, them is crazy, or Pippen or anybody else, that's how you saw them. Or the slow motion replay of a play is when you got to really see a sneaker. That was the only time they really zoomed in. The Harden, you could see that from the top rafters. Like it's that clear, of a sneaker for it. But now I do hate that. To me, it's on and this is, Harden is still a great player, but man, it's like we're at the 8 and Harden is on the downward of his career.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I would have loved to see this probably given to like a Donovan Mitchell, who's sort of like a incline still. He's still a high talent. Dame Lillard, you know what I mean? Well, not Dame. He's could have come
He's
back
the same way.
Yeah, he's going the same way now too. So I don't know, but I like the sneaker. This colorway, not a fan of it, but the sneaker itself is fine.
Yeah, it's fine. And then we have the sneakers and stuff, GT2 London. So like, I'm not mad at these. I kind of like these sort of, they're not Vans obviously, but they're kind of in the same boat in my opinion, where it's like you should have something like this that you can just go grab 100%. And put on. And so I'm not mad.
These, and I love it just like you said, because they remind me of like that Vans. That's the part of my aesthetic. Yeah. The only issue that I have with a lot of these ones now is that like my Vans are $75. These are like $140.
Yes.
Yes. $130. And I'm like, man, like it's the same thing. You know what I mean? It's sort of like that's why like I equated Dunks to not SB Dunks, but just your regular Dunk to like a Van, was because it's the same thing. It's not, I'm not going to go out here and go jogging. I'm not going to go running. If I wanted to skate in these, I could, because it's just a straight sole, no air, no technology, no nothing. It's just shoe. You know what I mean? And I look at the Sambas and I look at a lot of the Gazelles and things like that, the handballs and stuff like that, as like shoe. You know what I mean? But a lot of the collaborations, like these right here, these are nice, but they look like the sporty and rich ones too. Like,
yes.
I would love for people to more put their imprint their imprint on sneakers when they have collaborations, but I also know how collaborations work as well. A lot of these sneakers are already created, and they make them and they reach out to these stores and stuff like that and say, hey, would you like this to be a collaboration with us? So that the stores and the owners really don't get to say much on how they want to design the shoe. And that's why a lot of these shoes look the way they do. You know what I mean? It's like, you're like, oh, wow, this is a Sneakers and Stuff GT2. Well, Sneakers and Stuff is pretty big. They may have actually had a hand in this, but like a lot of these are already made. And they say, hey, want to do a collaboration? This could be yours. And that's it. And it's like another color, so.
I didn't think about that, but this is, I agree. Like if you look at this compared to everything else, it's like it just looks like a shoe. But I feel like people should more embrace having something like this and not just have to step out in their heat all the time. Like house shoes and just like going down the street. A lot of times, I don't know what you're like, but like I'll wear something that is ridiculous heat for no reason, to like go to the grocery store, go to the dentist, something like that, because I feel like it's, I don't know. It just feels like counterculture for some reason, and I like feeling that way sometimes.
We go to the grocery store sometimes as a family, like when we actually like, what, let's all go. The kids aren't, they're in a decent mood today. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Let's all go, and we feel like we've had the patience today to deal with the kids at the grocery store. will go and I'll just throw on like SB Sean Clivers. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I'm like, I'll wear these, or I'll pull out a Pharrell. I'll pull out something. You know what I mean? And then like when I really actually need to go somewhere, I'll throw on my black and white Vans. You know
that's
what I
right.
mean? It's just sometimes you just do that. Or but like the dentist, that's a really good point. Like the dentist knows me for my sneakers. And sometimes I'm like, I just sort of made it a thing. Like I'll just always wear a sneaker just at the dentist, and I'm like, okay, like you know what I mean. But
If it's
it,
just hilarious because you're sitting there, they're poking out at your mouth, and you've got like stuff that's just like nobody has any business wearing that at the dentist. Because like the dentist to me is like this. It's like that one thing that we all have to do that like I don't know anybody that's like man I love going to the dentist. So you got to make it palatable.
right.
Oh God, well, let's not get into that. All right, so the Soleil, Bembury, Pollux, Juniper,
Yeah.
Guava. I don't have a picture of this. So I don't know what it looks like.
So you know you've seen it. It's the new shoe. It's
Oh yeah. Okay.
um I'm interested in it. You know what I mean? But I need to know the price point of it. Okay.
Yes.
Um
Always.
because if it's like 120, 130, I'm more interested in it. But if it's gonna be like 180 or something for a Croc shoe, you know, I don't want to do it. I'm not gonna say I'm not gonna do it because I'm obviously highly irresponsible. But um I don't know. I like the look of it, but this goes back to what we were saying. I like the effort in things. Like I like ISPA with Nike. Like, even though it may not be my thing, I like to see the effort into it. Like, you know, and that's the thing with like let's the problem with sneakers today is like they'll sometimes they'll put the effort in one thing, and if it doesn't match their numbers or match the cool, they'll just stop. You know, it's funny because it's like we don't have a like there's like phone flight posits, you got phone posit, but like there's not like a legit like phone posit 2. You know what I mean? It's not like they made Air Max 1 and Air Max 1 was like for the but they didn't go like Air Max 2. You know, it's like Air Force 1 has like up to 3, I think. But like they were like, nah, everyone loves the Air Force 1. Let's just forget the Air Force 2 and Air Force 3. Let's just stick to the one. Like they didn't keep it going and try. Like they didn't put forth effort into like, you know what, let's see what we can do with this. Let's make a 2, a 3. Um, so like I love the effort that these other brands try to do. I don't own any regular Crocs, but I own a bunch of Salehi Crocs, And when the rare time, like if I go pick the kids from daycare or school or something like that, I'll have my Crocs on because it's right down the street. Somebody always goes, "Yo, I've never seen those Crocs." And I go, Thank you. It's a little bit different. Like it's a different version of it. It's a little bit more effort into it. So I don't know. I like these. If they're a decent price, I'm cool with it. But I also, and another thing, sorry, I expect these they should be more available. There's no reason to have a limited Croc, like a limited Croc shoe. Like what?
That's where we are though, man. Like you gotta because they gotta build hype, they gotta build this narrative that things are. But you mentioned how you wore your Crocs. I'm coaching my son's t-ball team this year, and first time I met one of the dads, he's got the Soleil Crocs on, and I'm like, oh, all right, this could be my people. So
Right.
I appreciate he's there. It's raining and he's got them. He's all dirty. I'm like, I like this guy. All right. This does not, I don't know. This does not need to be a thing, but the Air Jordan 1, I guess it's a low mule golf, nothing but net. I could not imagine myself golfing in that.
Well, here's the thing. It's a golf shoe and it's called nothing but net. Like it's
Yes.
a basketball shoe or a golf like that's my thing, and we had a guest on the podcast a long time ago. Shout out to him. He used to work for Lampstone and Hammer, and he was saying like buying a Jordan running shoe with a man holding a basketball on it doesn't line up. You know what I mean? It may not be the reason why somebody doesn't buy it, but it's partly you just don't realize it. I'm a nothing but net golf. What are you talking about? It's a golf shoe, and I don't know who golfs with their heels out. Like
That's what I'm saying. Like I could not imagine. I can't even imagine walking around in a shoe like this. And then on the golf course,
no, I can't. I can't unless I golf every once in a while. So like I'm not in it as deep as other people. So maybe there's a market for people who are like, I wish my heels are out. I don't know them, but
neither do I.
yeah. So anyways,
I know a lot of people that golf. I can't golf. When people say like, "You gonna golf in retirement?" No, man, that stresses me way too much. Hell no. All right, Air Foam Posit 1, light Orwood brown. It's okay.
I mean, it's a phone posit, man.
It's a foam posit. Since I live outside of the DMV here,
Yep.
they love them some foam posits, so got to
Okay.
give them some love. Air Jordan 1 High Golf Camo, another golf shoe. I mean, if your jam, it's your jam.
I guess.
All right, Nade Shot Rivalry Chalk Pearl Black. Again, it's an Adidas. Looks like an Adidas, and if looks like a duck, walks like a duck. It is a duck, folks.
You know.
It's what you got. Here's your favorite, the Vomero 5 Racer Blue. Again, not mad at it, but not a Vomero,
Yeah, I got one Vomero and it's a DB, and I haven't worn it yet because it's hot. It's bright yellow and bright orange. Like
The Dornbecker?
yeah, I have
Yeah.
the DB one, and I like it. I think it's executed perfectly. The materials are great. All the little special goodies it comes with is freaking awesome. The box, all that. But at the end of the day, it's a bright orange, bright yellow with bright red shoe, and I'm not comfortable right now walking out with that on.
Yeah, if your New Year's resolution is to wear shorts more often, I'm pretty sure the shoe is probably a little too crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's for a kid. I'll be honest with you. Like,
Yeah,
I
and
should have.
made by a kid, designed by a kid. People forget that.
And honestly, I wish Dorenbeckers, they probably wouldn't have been able to make the money they would off of them, but Dorenbeckers always should have been just for kids. You know what I mean? It should have been, but
Can't say anything about the cause. Always a good cause, but
always a good cause.
anyway. So this is the one I posted about this one. Like I might low key love these, and I know they're a remaster, but the Kith A6 Gel Light 3 Soul.
I mean, I may have to buy these.
I know. I was like looking at them, and I'm like, shoot, I'm talking myself into loving these. Like I can feel it.
Yeah, and with me personally, I prefer Gel Light 5s and Gel Sagas and things like over Gel Light 3s. The split up the middle I don't know, it didn't bother me. George hates it, but it didn't bother me as much as it bothers George. I just don't wear any of my Gel Light 3s that I have now. That's my thing. And I think these are great. I think these are like I got the Kith, the Monday, check the Monday, and I looked to see if they're on there because I'm like, I don't know, man. I may have to get these ones, and I'm still on the fence about these. I may end up getting them, but they look nice, man. I love that. I love that rough material.
I do too. You don't see it that often, but when it's there, like I just it's a unique execution of a material that you don't see all that often. And the color palette, again, like it's a remaster, but the color palette is non-offensive, where it's like, all right, I could easily see this being something that I could throw on with just about anything for any occasion going out there. And I'm going to talk myself into buying these. I can feel it. I can feel it in my bones.
Oh, they're yours. You got them.
Yeah, right. All right. New Balance 1500 made in England vintage sport. We've already been down that road. I skipped the GS of the Foamposite. So.
And the 1500 is one of my favorite models in New Balance of all time.
I like it,
especially the made. I love that model. This colorway is what it is, but I love that. But am I gonna buy these? Probably not. I'll go to the New Balance outlet just to always check to see what they have in the back wall.
I do too.
The New Balance outlet, at least the one out here for us, they don't have big enough discounts for me. Like,
no,
it'd be like $149 with 8% off, and I'm like, buddy, I came to the outlet. I thought I was gonna get New Balances that are $149. I thought I was gonna get them for like $89 here. Like I thought, $79. I didn't think I was gonna get you gonna take off tax. You know what I mean? Like you're just taking off local tax. You know what I mean? So.
Oh yeah, I went. I got. It was a bodega collab, and it was like they did it a couple years ago. I can't remember what it was called, but it was like, it was a yellow and blue, and then a blue and yellow, and they kind of flipped them. And I went to the outlet, and they had a full size run in both colors, and it was like $69.99, and I was like, wow, go ahead, slide these out here. I'm getting out of here.
And see, when I went there, I started going in there because I remember I seen those in there, and I was like, holy crap, they got the bodegas in here. And I'm not a huge 574 fan. I think they're 574s.
They are.
But, as I've gotten older, I like them a lot more than I did when I was a little bit younger. And I was like, oh, cool, this is a good price. Now, at that time, they didn't have my size, but I'm like, this is the price that I'm talking about. So that's why I started regularly checking. And then as I started regularly checking, I haven't seen any for $69 anymore. Like, they're like, retail $155, but today $125. $33. I'm like, no, that's not why I came here.
Oh man, the one we have over here, they got them at full price, like the high valued models, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like I'm offended. I'm offended that you have this at full price. Like this is not where I pay full. You think I'm gonna walk out of here? No. Mm-mm-mm.
Like, what's funny is like we don't even have like an actual New Balance store, like a retail store. And I'm thinking like, okay, like the outlet should be indicative of like outlet prices, but
they're slowly pushing to the point where they're trying to like pull the wool over our eyes to make us think that like the Nike outlet is just a Nike store, because they're starting to charge full price for some of that stuff. And I'm like,
because like our Nike store now, like, it takes all the returns, and a lot of people would like go everything there, and they now have a special section for all the like basically new releases that got returned. And there are so many Devin Bookers in this one section of our outlet that it's like, and they're all regular price. Jordan 1s. I saw a couple military 4s over there. I saw a couple, I'm a man year 5s. Like there's a lot of things over there, and they're at that price. And I'm like, look, man, you need to send these back to the main Nike headquarters. Like if you're gonna sell these in an outlet, they should be at the very least a new release 20% at the very least. To me, I get it that they just came out and someone returned them, but then you can't put these on the shelves in the outlet. To me, like, no. But I think it goes back to just the retail issue, is that retail has gotten so high that outlet has gotten high. You know what I mean? If the retail on a Lightning 17 is 300, let's say they don't sell out, let's say somehow they end up in the outlet, that means the price in the outlet is going to be like 275. You know what I mean? So when your retail is so high, your outlet becomes higher. It doesn't get better.
It's kind of offensive, I'm not gonna lie. All right, the Air Jordan 1 Low OG Metallic Silver.
This is my first time even seeing these. I didn't even know these were coming out. Like, I didn't realize it was the OG cut, because them the only Jordan ones I like are the OG cut.
Yeah.
I'm not buying these, but
I am not buying those. All right, we got two. It looks like Dior, but not that Dior. Dior with an apostrophe. Let's see. Hold up. The Greenwood Blazer Mid SB Dene. I don't know. What is that? What do you?
Yeah, maybe Dene.
It looks like to me, it looks like a black Blazer Mid.
If you click and zoom in, it is way different than a regular Blazer.
It's got like that weird shroud almost over the laces.
It has a little character to it. I mean, not enough for me to buy these, but a little character.
Nope. And then of course we have the Dior again, not that Dior. Greenwood Dunk High SB Navajo Arts. I could not wear these, but this falls in the category of, I appreciate that there has to be some linkage to some cultural or like very emotional tie that you designed the shoe off of, and I can't get mad at that, even though I'm not gonna buy them.
Yeah, these, I mean, maybe this is part of I guess this isn't like the N7 stuff that Nike does typically. I don't know. I appreciate, like you said, like the linkage between stuff. It's like when they do Black History Month, they do N7, they do things like that. I appreciate it, but I feel like sometimes the effort into it is either like too in your face blatant, or it's not. This right here has the constellations on it. It got like your traditional like Native American colors. Like it's like they threw everything on it. Like, this is Native American. This is Native American. Look at it. Native American. It's like, be subtle with it in some type of way, and then bounce on it. The fact that neither one of us have even heard of this Dior Greenwood, that goes to like the history of things, and a brand isn't educating me enough. I get plenty of notifications from Nike on like, check out our latest drops. Check out this. Why don't you send me a notification on learn about the Dior Greenwood brand or the Native American connection? Why don't you send me those? Like, I just found out on our last episode, Wells Bonner is a woman.
Like, I actually was laughing. I was out for a run when you guys were talking. I was listening to that, and you're like, Wells Bonner, this guy. And I was like, I think it's a woman. And I'm like, maybe I'm wrong. And then you're like, shoot, it's a woman?
Here's the thing. At first I was like, oh crap. Me and George are probably of course the only two people that didn't know she's a woman. I got so many messages like, fam, I thought it was a man too. And I go, okay, good. I feel better about it. And maybe I need to do a little bit more homework on it, but like, I'm at the age, and maybe because I have a podcast, I should, but it's not my responsibility. Like, I don't feel like anybody younger than me is doing the homework, which means to me we'll talk about it. We'll get into it.
Oh
We'll
no,
get into it.
they're not. They ain't doing the homework. I can guarantee you that.
We'll get
Dennis Schroeder, All Pro, Nitro, Gold, Black. Is it Puma? Or what is that?
Yep.
Is
It's
that
a Puma.
Sure.
Yeah. I like the shoe a lot. I
Yeah.
didn't know Dennis Schroeder was gonna get his own one.
No,
but
that was that's an upset. All right. Looks like a Adidas Women's Gazelle Bold Blue Pink Spark. I don't know. I'm not. It's fine, but I'm not a big fan of that like triple outsole. Like I just, whatever.
That's my thing. That's their effort in trying. Add 2 more soles.
Yeah, that's not really. No, we'll get into that. All right, the Gazelle Indoor Black White Gum. I swear, because like where I grew up in New England, people wore Sambas for indoor soccer all the time. Like heavy Portuguese, like people that lived in where I grew up. When I look at this shoe, that's what it reminds me of. It reminds me of something that my friends would have played indoor soccer in.
Yep.
Let's see, the Tyshawn 2 White Black.
Yep.
Sure.
All right.
Yep. Rivalry Lux Low Ivory. Feel like we're all kind of in the same boat here. A lot of shoes dropping on June 1st, which is a little bit ridiculous. All right. Okay. The Busenitz Vintage Feather Gray Red. Not mad.
Yeah, okay.
Not mad at that. Women's Superstar White Mint Rush. I won't lie to you. After my dark period of actually liking Fred Durst, I can't really look at a superstar anymore and take myself seriously. But I get, they have a history long before he ever wore them. But, superstars to me feel very dated. Women's Adiform Stan Smith Mule Linen Green. I mean, if you need a clog, would you consider that a clog?
I mean, I don't know. I just don't know who this is for. Like, I've seen like many luxury brands do a mule clog type thing, and I feel like if I really, really had to have a clog mule, Adidas wouldn't be my go-to for clog mules. Like, if I was a woman, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like once a woman makes that commitment to like, I want to wear something that's that big, that out there, they're gonna go probably get something a little bit nicer, not the Adidas foam one. I don't know, man. Like you hear about these companies and like how much money they make and lose every single year, and I go, if you stop making these things, like you don't need the Adi foam mule clog. You don't need that. Stop. Like, but maybe I'm on the other side. Don't know that. Maybe these are one of their top sellers for all I know. I have no idea.
They are not. You and I both know that.
Oh, I know it. I know it, but like try to give them a little grace. Maybe they got some spreadsheets that show that this is killing it in Switzerland. Like, okay.
Yeah. Now that they got 2 statisticians on the same pod, or no, the numbers just don't add up.
Yeah.
All right. We got 3 more to go. The Handball Special Pre-Loved Yellow. It's nice looking. Yellow's a tough shoe to. I mean, yellow's a tough color sometimes to pull off on the regular, but definitely not mad at it. Women's Gazelle Indoor Magic Beige.
Cool.
Yep. And the Samba OG Semi-Blue Burst Gum.
Cool, too.
Yep. We can do one more. June 5th, the Air Zoom Pegasus 41 Volt. I assume that is for running folks like I used to be. So that looks like it gets us all the way to June 5th. I did not do it with the pizzazz that George does it, but I did my best, man. Tell him I did my best.
You did a good job, man. You did better than me because I hate doing it.
I know you hate it, so I was like, I'll offer to step in here.
Because I was gonna message you like, yo, you mind doing the releases? I hate doing it. But no, man, I appreciate you going ahead and take care of that for us. All right, so let's get right into it, man. So I know we talked about a few things, we were trying to figure out topics for the show and stuff like that. And, I appreciate you sending that list, man. Like, that was a good list. I'll ask people all the time, like, hey, man, if there's anything you want to talk about, want to do, they'd be like, oh, I'll think about it. They never do. I think, no joke, you may be one of, like, out of, I don't know how many guests we've had on this show who've actually sent something to actually talk about. I appreciate that.
Well, I as I'm writing it, I'm like, God, I hope I don't come off as like the stalker ex who's just like sending messages and messages. And I was like, the last one I was gonna be like, sorry, man, I hope I didn't inundate you with that. But I don't know. You asked me for topics, and I had stuff on my mind, but I had to go out and cut the grass like any good dad would on a Sunday, So I just kind of word vomited. But you seem, when you said like, "How good," I'm like, cool.
No, that was perfect. Like it was actually perfect. So, but yeah, so one of the things that you had sent, and just to kind of start off the top of it with, like, you talked about the sports and stories that go along the lines with sneakers and stuff like that. Um, and, I know we've kind of talked about it a little bit on this podcast, and right now, I'm more thinking, like NBA playoffs and stuff like that is sort of going along. And I've talked about numerous times to me that, sneakers, the best stories for sneakers, always sports related to me. Um, Only because I feel like we all had the opportunity to participate in it, and that's where the authenticity comes and what the sneaker was made for. You know what I mean?
No, I know exactly what you mean, but I had a thought between yesterday and today and thinking about, like, again, we're the same age. So we grew up in a time where we saw or the ascension and the prime of Michael Jordan. We saw the ascension of Kobe and LeBron and even guys like Kevin Garnett and Sean Kemp and Gary Payton. Like, so many of these guys come and go in the league. And you actually mentioned earlier about how you had to look at pictures, right? You had to look at replays after the fact. Where now I wonder if sports moments don't define sneakers as much anymore, because like Anthony Edwards dunks on a guy, that's on Twitter immediately.
That's one.
Immediately.
Yep.
And it's there and gone that quickly. Whereas you and I still remember the Craig Elo shot, the flu game, the last shot, like so many of those moments of, like, they're indelible moments in our mind because we witnessed them live and had to wait until YouTube to replay them, basically.
Oh, 100%. And what's funny is that, like, you had to rely on your memory with a lot of that stuff, like you said, because I can tell you exactly where I was when I seen the last shot or the Elo shot or Jordan switch hands right to the left against the Lakers in this fight. I can tell you exactly where I was. I can't tell you where I was when uh Derrick Rose did this, or when Jason Tatum did this. I couldn't tell you because even if I saw it live, it's like that. And now, like you said, media has changed to where now it's on social media like this. You know what I mean? You used to watching sports was like we didn't have DVR. You didn't have a way to watch it. I know a lot of people that I work with personally. I mean, they want to talk sports. They talk it, but they don't watch it. They go to YouTube and they watch type in the highlights and they get a rundown really quick. You know what I mean? Or they watch the sports shows and they get a rundown and they take people's opinions as gold versus developing their own from actually watching it.
Yeah.
So it's like, I remember when NBC, the music, man, a quadruple header on a Sunday afternoon used to be one of the greatest feelings ever. And I'm talking about me personally. It would be like Hornets versus Heat first, then Knicks versus Pacers, then Suns versus Spurs, then Utah versus the Lakers. Like, that was your entire Sunday. A triple header, a quadruple header, and it wasn't no record it later, watch it on YouTube later, get on social media. Oh, I can miss that game. I'll watch this game. They try to do that nowadays with like your Thanksgiving, your Christmas and stuff like that. But like people are so inundated with other options of like where to put their attention that they don't put it on that. You used to sit and watch sports. You would fall asleep, at some point during the second quarter, wake up during the fourth quarter. Like it was like your day. So like when you look at like how you would tie in those moments is because like they mattered at that moment. You know what I mean? I didn't have another way to relive that moment later. In that moment, I watched Barkley walk down David Robinson, two-step jumper at the free throw line, walk up. I watched that, you know what I mean? So like I got the opportunity to fully put myself in that moment. I wasn't watching the game and on my cell phone scrolling at the same time looking up. I wasn't checking IG while watching the game. Like it's so bad now that like we can't even sit in front of the TV and watch a movie without going on Instagram a little bit and put the phone down, pick it back up. It's like, man, I can't even fully get enthralled in why Oppenheimer is such a great put together film, because I'm also seeing what so and so talking about. Let me pause the movie. I'll pause the movie to listen to a video on Instagram. That's how bad it's gotten. You know what I mean?
Yes. No, I'm fully with you, but also I think we didn't have options when we were growing up. So like now you can get the NBA package, get every game, right? Every out of market game that you want. You could live, eat, and breathe the NBA all season long.
Yep.
Whereas when I was growing up, if it wasn't the Celtics, because I grew up in New England, it was most likely the Bulls, because that's who was on prime time and that's who I got to see. And so the moments, and therefore the sneakers that are a part of the moment, especially for Jordan's sake, are forever tied and have they have a lasting impact because of the fact that they're tied to those moments. Whereas like this is no shade at players now, but a couple factors are different. Obviously, there's more sneakers out there than there was. So like when Jordan burst on the scene, a lot of the players were wearing like white Converse, white Pumas. So like the Jordan 1 stood out, and then his game obviously attached to it. Now, like you see the picture of Anthony Edwards dunking, and they're like, look at his dunk in his Edwards shoes, and I'm like, they barely stand out compared to the other guys who are wearing either their own signature shoe or somebody else's signature shoe, and it's just not the same anymore.
Right. Yeah, it's and that you bring that up is like it's even back in the day when Jordan had sneakers, Pippen, Shaq, Gary Payton, they had all their sneakers and stuff like that. But like a lot of the other players on the court, they were wearing like regular sneakers. Like you didn't see. I turned the game on today. 10 players on the court, 5-on-5. There's a strong possibility that at least 6 of them got on Kobe's. Like
Yes.
at least 6 of them. And you could even in today you could even see Luca playing in a pair of Lucas and the person guarding him wearing Lucas. That would never happen back in
No.
the day. There is no way I would be wearing LeBron's while playing against LeBron. There is absolutely no way. That's a pride thing, and maybe that's an OG old school thing, but you wouldn't see it. When there was a ornaments on the court, leather, there was only one on the court. Maybe Randy Brown on the Bulls. Maybe you had him a Ron Harper every once in a while would come out there wearing them during the playoffs or something like that. But you never saw anybody on the Sonics out there wearing Jordan 11s, or you saw anybody on the Pacers or anything like that. Reggie Miller had a stint with Jordans for a little while, but Jordan was already retired at that point. Like,
Yeah.
and so that's what, and that sort of changed the game too when Jordan Brand came along. Is that like more outside Ray Allen, Reggie Miller, some of those Eddie Jones, they were wearing Jordan Brand, you know what I mean? But they were wearing Jordans. They weren't wearing like the Jordan signature. So and that was, if they did, it was rare, like a 14, PE or whatnot. But it's like you said, it's the appreciation of where you go with it. I don't have, like you said, I have so many options of what game to pick right now. And like what got me to buy the Anthony Edwards, that was that dunk over John Sexton. I can't remember who it was, on Utah. He dunked over them. I was like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and buy a pair of this. That dunk was spectacular, but I wasn't watching that game. You know what I mean? I see Utah and Minnesota on the thing. Yeah, no, thank you. I'd rather watch Lakers, somebody else, or I'd rather watch Mavs than somebody else. I'm not gonna watch the Utah Jazz and the Mavericks game. Back in the day, if that was the game that was on TV, that was the game that was on TV. You were watching it.
100%. But I also think players today market themselves as like a brand. Like they are the brand. So like back in the day, I feel like Michael Jordan's play sold Jordan's. Kobe's play, like his achievements, sold it. Whereas now, a lot of people, like especially younger people, are buying, like they like John Morant because it's like this guy's flashy on the court, he's flashy off the court. And I think that like social media has really lent itself to people not being as married to the achievements on the court and the shoes themselves. Like the shoes have to be an expression of the person at all times. And like that's not a bad thing per se. But I don't think personally, this might be a hot take, like I don't think personally there's any like signature models that are coming out now for players, not ones that have already been established. I don't know if we're going to be talking about him in 20 years. Like, will we be talking about the AE1 even no matter how good he is? Will it be something that stays? I don't think so, because I just don't think the consumer and the viewer think about it the way that we did.
So in that sense, I do agree with that, because I think LeBron is probably a great example of that. So when LeBron's came out, you could start at Zoom generation all the way to where we are now. A new LeBron was sort of like a moment. It was a little bit of microcosm of a moment, like, oh shoot, the new LeBron, whatnot. They were with the LeBrons, they were so in the moment of like new technology and things and different materials and stuff that like in that moment it was like, oh, okay, I'm interested. You'll don't even talk to me about buying a LeBron today. You know what I mean? And you look at like the LeBron, like let's start at 20, what right now? They're so tame
Yes.
compared to how they used to be. I mean, a LeBron used to be just over the top. And now it's just like not a low top, not a mid, some nice suede, a couple color, a few, actually a lot of colorways, but nothing too crazy like, visible air, um, big metal pieces on the side, foam, like different lace. Like they were so out there. And now we're in that area of where we're saying 20 years later, 15 years later, they came out with the Fruity Pebble, what was that, LeBron 4, 3,
Yeah.
whatever.
It's a 4, I think.
Damn, you would have came out with that LeBron Fruity Pebble about 15 years ago, people would have lost their minds because it was one of those ones you couldn't have, and it was like, oh, that's cool, that's different. You come out with it today, I'm not, because the people that know about that, you and we know about that because that was during our era. But we're now in our 40s. I can't wear Fruity Pebble Foamposite LeBron. I can't do it. You missed my window.
Yes.
And these new kids aren't gonna be like, whoa, I was 4 years old when these came out. Like these new kids aren't gonna be like Fruity Pebble LeBron 4, whatever model it is, 3. No, they're 4. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's 4.
I think it's 4.
I think it's a 4. These new kids aren't looking for that. These new kids barely put their clothes on. They wear pajamas to school today. You think they about to buy a 200 plus Fruity Pebble foam? No, they're not.
No, they're not. And I hate sounding so old, right?
I,
Because I consider myself in the game where it's like I'm old, but I'm not an OG, right? And I'm very upfront about how I participate, how I came into it. And I think it's important that like people know that about me, where because you got people who are trying to fake it till they make it. And it's like, oh, where like I wasn't in the sneaker space when that happened, but it doesn't preclude me from going back and learning the things that happened to get to where we are today, to the
oh,
point where like the kid who's in high school who walks our dog, he saw me with a pair of dunks on and he's like, I think my friend has those Jordans. And I'm like, I don't even want to speak with you now because this is a fundamental problem of, oh, I love sneakers. I was like, well, you clearly don't, because you can't even tell the difference between this and something that your friend, like there's just so many things about it. And it's the irreverence that comes with the new attitude. Like, I don't care. You can like whatever you like, wear whatever you like. But when people say like something is whack, and it's like, you don't even understand why this wasn't whack back
right.
in the day. That bothers me a lot. It really does.
Yeah, and I think, and, uh, that's sort of like along those lines. Well, actually, let me go back for 1 second about the performance that you had mentioned was about performance tied to
Sure.
sneak, because that's very, very, very important. Okay, and it's important because we talk about media today, right? We talk podcast. Opinions used to be, if they existed, we didn't have any way to hear about it. The only apparent opinions that I heard were during the pregame of a game and the post game after a game, and then whoever watched the game with me and friends at school. Those were opinions came in from. It wasn't a podcast. It wasn't a YouTube review. It wasn't all these outlets for people to give these like outlandish tech. There's no first take. There was nothing like first take and stuff like that that existed. I think Jim Rome came around a little bit later on, but like that was like, whoa, you know what I mean? That's why Howard Stern and people like that used to be so mind blowing, because it was like the era and time they were saying these things. Um, Today, we put so much value on the consistency of a person in their profession that I'm talking just, you have a 2 game slide today and they're talking about should they trade you? And you're like, wait a minute. Like, he's shooting bad. Like, we're using words like he sucks. And he just scored 40 last night, but then the last 2 games he scored under 20. And we're like, he's garbage, overrated. We're jumping out the window with things. And I'm a part of that era too. It just it is what it is. Um, but we don't take in. But we're so used to Jordan. Well, I didn't pay attention to when Jordan went maybe 8 for 21. I didn't pay attention to that because his presence and his touch on the game was so dominant that him going 8 for 21 but still ending up with 30, but his defense and things like that, and how he raised his voice at his teammates, how he got on them about that, and he demanded the best out of them even when he's not giving his best. That made, I'm sorry, Kobe Bryant, people love to call him a jerk and how he was. He demanded the best out of you, and that's how, to the detriment, and it sucks sometimes as a parent today. That's how I raise my kids. I saw what you could do on Monday. You're not gonna tell me you can't do the same thing on Tuesday. I, Anthony Edwards, you brought up John Moran and all them. We talked about their sneakers, and to me, a lot of the sneakers and stuff like that reflect their personalities. So Devin Booker may be the most consistent out of all of them, right?
Yeah.
But Devin Booker is not what I would define as cool or flashy or any personality. If I closed my eyes and three people went in here and I heard Devin, I couldn't tell you if that was Devin Booker talking or not. You know
Nope.
what I mean? He doesn't have the hair. He doesn't wear a grill. He isn't flat. You know what I mean? That's what matters to today. And I understand it. I get it. But at the same time, you know, Anthony Edwards is on a really big slide right now in the playoffs. Like, he is, they were talking about him and Jordan, and I'm talking his slide is so bad right now, the last 4 or 5 games, that you're like, Jesus, like, you know what I mean? And that makes it, and I put on Twitter, I was like, man, that AE sneaker stock is like this. But what's funny is that Luka is killing it, but I don't think the Luka sneaker stock is going like this. You know what I mean? I don't know if the Kyrie Anta stock is going like this. Maybe in China. I don't know about if that's translating to the US. So, like, you know what? That performance stuff to me, I knew when Kobe Bryant stepped on the court. I knew when Karl Malone. I knew when Sean. I knew when these certain players, Shaq, when they stepped on the court, they were going to give me all they had in some area of the game. You know what? I'm having a hard time scoring today, but I'm about to, it's something. I knew something. I can't guarantee that when I watch an Anthony Edwards. When Anthony Edwards gets on the court, I'm hoping we couldn't even guarantee that with a LeBron. You remember those games where it was like, yo, we need LeBron to score 40 today. Those games, and he wouldn't. He'd give you 20 and like 10 assists, and like even like, LeBron, we need you to take the last second shot. He throw it in the corner and stuff like that. And it was like, no, Jordan would never. Kobe would never. You know what I mean? And I hate being old man. I do. I do. But we're talking about sneakers here. We're talking about history.
But it's realism. Like, we are a product of when we grew up. Now, our upbringings might have been different, but we watched the same product on the court. And I know for me, like, we just had this conversation on my sports pod the other day about why I'm not as into the NBA as I used to be. Right. And it has to do with the fundamental difference between the product now and the product back then. And I don't hate on the product today. Like, I recognize it for being a much more fluid game, a much more graceful game. But there were the character of the game when I was watching it felt different. And like you said, guys go out there and it's like you knew they were going to deliver. The reason Karl Malone was called the mailman was because he always delivered. And you knew that. You could go to the bank and cash your check and you knew it was coming back. And I don't feel that way with a lot of guys now. It's very streaky, but we also don't allow the grace for people. And the same thing goes for sneakers too. We don't allow grace for like Nike to have a little bit of a downturn, or like the Dunk to have a little bit of a down moment. I mean, when they shoot out colorways left and right every single week, how many releases did we go over today? Like 30, and that's a week.
Sneaker releases used to be like 5. Like,
yes.
That may even be high. You know, it's fun because it's like when we actually knew of a release date on something, and I'm talking probably more the 90s and stuff like that, that release date was pretty much dedicated to that shoe. It was like the penny is dropping. It was dedicated to the penny. Like, it wasn't going to also be the Pippen and also be the whatever. That didn't happen till down the road. You know what I mean? Even in the 2000s when they started releasing packs. Like, when brands started making you have to make a decision. Like, if you were very fortunate enough to, like, and we'll talk about a little, maybe, it's just like the All-Star pack. Okay. We'll talk about the Galaxy pack. I think over 13 shoes came out that day. Obviously, the main ones were, that week. Obviously, the main ones was the Big Bang, the KD4 Galaxy, the Kobe 7 Galaxy, whatever it was called, and then the Foamposite Galaxy. Those were the main 4 or 5, whatever. But we had Blake Griffins that dropped. There was other space ones. They had Dunks. There were other things that was related to that project. Flight Ones. It was a bunch of other ones related to that. When brands started making you go to the store with your 150, $200, and you had to decide. First of all, you had to win because it turned into raffles, but you had to decide, do I want the LeBron? Do I want the Kobe? Do I want the pin? Which one do I want? Because I can't buy all of them. You know, a release day was for the Zoom Generation 1, the first LeBron. We're in line. We want that. The Jordan 16, the Jordan 11, the Jordan. It was for that day. Read off all that stuff right there. I can't buy all that. I can't buy it all, you know?
No, not especially not when you're going like in person. And I will say that I missed being able to sort of live part of that culture, because like when I think about it, I'm like, man, what I've survived, and it's easier now. But I kind of think back, like it meant something different. Where I think you talked about it, where it's like now when I pull up my phone, I can cop super easy.
Yeah.
It's an effort to appreciate the shoe when it comes in. Like it's an effort to say like, ooh, I need to make sure I appreciate this, because it's so easy to go on to the next one. Whereas, as you said, you're in line and it's like, this is like life or death here. Like I got to make this choice. And if I make the wrong one, I'm going to hate myself forever.
You know, people, I think I saw a video recently of how people were acting at looked like a camp out or a lineup for the Jordan 17 with the suitcase. I think it was like a bunch of pushing and something at some location. I saw a couple of videos on it. And, you know, I remember when people used to show videos from like major cities, okay? Like we're in Phoenix, Arizona, all right? You know, it's a top 10 major city in the country, but like it isn't like your major cities. And you could include, you know, you got New York, you got LA, you got Boston, you got places like that, you know what I mean, that have like specific things that just aren't. So this is how I'll wrap this. I'll tie this up into this. Is like when I saw people in New York fighting in line, pushing, talking crazy, fighting, I completely understood it. And I understood it because of how much work it was for them just to get to the store. People don't me, I hop in my car in sunny Arizona, I hit the freeway, I drive in a straight line, get off my exit, find a free parking space, park in it, and I walk up and say, "Hey guys, that's Phoenix, Arizona." In New York, depending on who you are or where you are in your status, you may got to take 2 trains just to get there in weather that is stupid. It could be snow, it could be rainy. You got to deal with the city of New York just to get to the line. And then when you get to the line, you got to deal with people who all had to deal with the exact same thing you had to deal with just to get there, just to might be able to spend your $200. Somebody, anything can set you off when you have put that much work in. You got to pay for a parking space. You can't find parking in New York. If you're fortunate enough to have your own vehicle, you got to deal with traffic, find a space, jump in line. Man, out here in Arizona, I drive up into a full gigantic parking lot, pull up, drive in. I could park. Sometimes when we used to go to sneaker camp outs, I'd park illegally. We'd park anywhere we like, and nobody said a word about it. You know, I'm gonna stop right here and park. Nobody would say a word about it. That's what the difference is in like understanding. So like when you said you feel like you messed on that era, I talk about it today. I feel like a lot of people who are like, I love it, I can cop now as easy, is because back then they were probably losers. And I don't mean like they were a loser. They probably didn't get a lot of the stuff they wanted to get back then. So today it's prevalent for them, but they also didn't either put in the correct work or they didn't, whatever the case may be. That work, it felt like an accomplishment. Like, man, I woke up at 3 a.m., got to the line, politicked a bit, waited in line. I fought the rain, I fought the snow. And then you know what? I listened to people tip, yo, House of Hoops got some more pairs. I hopped in the whip, drove there real quick. Like, it was the work. And then by the time you got home in the daytime, you've been up since, no joke, about 2 a.m., midnight. You may have been up since 9 p.m. the previous night. And you don't get back to your house until about noon the next day. Man, you take a nap, you got your Kobe sixes in the corner, you take a nap. Boy, it felt like you really did something today, even though you pretty much wasted a bunch of time, but it made you really feel like you did something that day.
but there was a solidarity that came along with it because like you knew you were in it with a lot of other people too. Like they were wasting their days and they were using that kind of time. And one of the things I like about what you guys do and what I try to do is like I think that you feel like you have a sense of like you understand and you understand the responsibility of the fact that like people listen to Sneak This because they like what y'all have to say and they probably experience sneakers very similarly, right? Like they had those kind of things and they feel heard and they feel seen by like how you guys do it. Plus, you have different people on there. Like somebody like me, I'm came in here thinking people are probably gonna be like, who is this guy? You know, like that's how tribal things can be. But like I try to represent myself the way I have done it. But just collaborating and talking to different people, it's the only way that you can like fabricate what it used to be like back then. But it's just it will never be what it was.
So I can tell you this right now off this episode because I've already been thinking it as we've been talking. This is already one of my favorite episodes.
Seriously?
Because 100%. Because, and I know other people are going to feel the same way because just like you said, it's two different types of podcasts and two different types of personalities that co-align with the same topic, which is sneakers. When our podcast, I understood right off the bat when we first started it, it wasn't going to be for everybody because a lot of people think that podcasting and then like they take our opinions and our views and they make it theirs. A lot of people themselves to aligns with their thoughts, just like politics. You're gonna put your blinders on and you're gonna stay with what you think. You're not even gonna attempt to hear any other thing. I knew that people that would like our show would be like this. Okay. As we've gone on over the years, they've opened it up and explore. I always used to tell people, yo, take a break from us because I know how much we can be. The reason for our podcast was to share our conversations and how we feel with you. It wasn't to convince you or tell anybody else. Your podcast, Sock Jig, there's a few other podcasts where I'm like, you're gonna get something very specific from you. You're gonna get very researched, understand, knowledge, new information, things you may have forgot, which is highly appreciated. It's really good. Your podcast is really good. Sock Jig, you're gonna get the more backdoor understanding of how things work with Shopify and what brands are doing and what they're thinking. You're going to get a way different perspective. And that's what I want. The biggest compliment that I've ever gotten about our podcast, and it's still my favorite compliment today, is when people go, yo, it feels like I'm talking with my homies. It feels like I'm talking to my cousins, because that's how generally we talk. When I'm talking to George outside of here, I'm like, man, those suck. I could get on the podcast and go, those aren't for me. I could do that, but that's not me. And it's just not me. I'm sharing how I feel about it. It's like when somebody on Twitter was like, yo, you think everything sucks. No, I don't. Look at all this. No, I don't. You're not listening. You think it's fire. I think it sucks. That doesn't mean you can't buy it. You love it. I love it. You know what I mean? Because it's a different aesthetic. People get on here and listen to me talk about Vans, and at the same time, I own hundreds and hundreds of Nike basketball and sneakers and stuff like that. It's just an understanding of like me, of who I am, who you are, who other people are, and it's being able to come together and understand that. When I would go to a camp out, the conversations that would be at a camp out, you knew who you liked, you knew who you jived with, you knew who you didn't like. You just developed that. There would be plenty of camp outs and lineups. We drive up, me and George, and be like, oh my God, every time we come here, he's here. You got your cats that stand in line, they lie all day. Oh yeah, I got two Yeezy 2s at the house. All right, bro. Okay, man. Thank you very much. You know, people that got
Yeah.
secret tips. Yo, FYI, if you go right now to the mall in New York, it's just all kind of crazy stuff, you know. But that came with the territory, and that's what we appreciated about it. Today, I can sit on my couch and buy anything, not make any interaction, and I think that's hindered me now from like going out anymore. I don't a sneaker store like it's rare that I go to a sneaker store. I'm talking it is rare. But I tell everybody else to go. Like it's rare for me. You know what I mean? So it's just a different time, man.
I don't go because I assume they're not going to have it, but I got kind of screwed over by the military force because I bought them off, I think it was DTLR. There is a DTLR 5 miles from my house. And wouldn't you know it, they charged me $13 shipping and shipped them from that store. I was livid.
That's actually funny.
And my wife is like, you can't bring them back because they're not going to give you your shipping back. And I was like, yes. And then I went to the Nike outlet and they're staring me in the face were the military fours. And I was like, this is what I get. This is what I get for being lazy.
Because that's what's funny is that like a lot of people have now associated like a sneaker being sold out with Sneakers app. Just because Sneakers app says it's sold out, they think it's done. And I'm nope. You go to the mall, they got Concord 11s or DMP 11s, whatever the last one was. They have them there. But people just go like, they're sold out. Everybody bought them. They're gone. No, they're not. Trust me. If you leave and go to the store right now, you can go get them. I'm pretty confident these Terra Humeras are probably at my undefeated. I'm sure they probably still got a few pairs. I'm pretty sure. But like I didn't go. I'm not gonna go. And you know what I mean? It's like I got a busy life, you know what I mean? So
yeah. And if I can talk a little bit about like kind of how I got here. I don't want to make it about me, but like it's relevant because when I kind of got back into it, my reintroduction was, I think it was like 2018, and I was in this place where I was like, I suck at footwear. Like I have no idea what to wear because I wear business casual at home, and then I come home and at work, and I come home and I have like no idea what to wear. But I was like, I always used to wear skate shoes. Like I was always a big like DC guy, Airwalks way back in the day. And I was in New York City and we went to Flight Club. And I didn't know what Flight Club was, but there's just like walls of shoes. And so I was like, oh my God, like this is amazing. And I went deep down a rabbit hole, not there, but you know, discovering the sneakers app, discovering StockX, Go, just researching like crazy. And my sneaker sort of opinions, it didn't take long for them to sort of be defined. And then the pandemic happened and I was at home and, you know, the sneaker market blew up and I discovered like the replica market as a way of accessibility, but it's changed a lot for me now because now it's like, I see that the same issues that exist in the real world of sneakers exist in that world. And people have the same bad opinions in that world as they do in this world. But I will say this, reps got me into content making because I started making content there, but I knew immediately there's no end game to this. And so I started making the pod because I wanted to do something real. I wanted to do something that was myself, but wouldn't you know it, I stopped making it. And for 7 months, people kept subscribing. I had made content and so I brought it back as to what it is now. And my most listened to episode is not even about sneakers. It was about me turning 40. And people message me about, hey, I'm the same age. And man, you know, it's nice to hear somebody be real about that and talk about that. And I started a group chat, and shout out to those guys because they're like you said, they like feeling heard and being like with their homies talking about shoes. And it's important. And like they get 15, maybe 20 minutes of my voice every single week. And that's what works for me. But I feel like it's important that there's a lot of people who come up now who don't understand the things that came before them. Like the Air Max 180 came out. So many people were like, why would I buy that? And I'm like, why would you not try to buy that? And that's how I kind of got to where I am, and my opinions have sort of formed. And now it's nice to like put in the work and, you know, like, you know, cop things that I enjoy and wear them. And doing content has really helped kind of, I don't know, define how I feel about sneakers, and I like where I'm at with it, and I like being able to talk to different audiences. And so that's why I was like surprised that you asked me to come on here, and also surprised that you say like this is your favorite, because I feel like an imposter sometimes in the sense of like I would not be the same kind of content that people who listen to Sneak Disc would want. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but see, that's where, and I want people to listen to you and Sogjig and other people, because like you get a different side of sneakers. Like people love talking about sneaker community and the sneaker culture and stuff like that. The best part about like culture within itself is that like it's a melting pot of ideas and a melting of different genres and how things work. You know what I mean? It's like you got different communities, and it's the exact same way. When you know you got, and people hate to hear this, but like bots in sneaker buying is a part of the sneaker community. Replicas and fakes are a part of the sneaker community. You got your authentics, you got OGs, you got new people. It's all in the same community. And the thing is, it's okay to go to each one and listen and hear what they got to say and get a better understanding of it. I may not participate in bots, but like, I'm not going to sit here and act like it doesn't exist or it's destroying the world or the culture and whatever. I'm also not going to go over here and look at fakes have been around for forever. So like hearing people that want to that dabble in that or buy that or do what they want to do, I want to hear why and their opinions on it, because a lot of this stuff is it's valid opinions on it. It may not be my thing, I'm not doing it or whatnot, but that's just kind of how it works. So like when people do get the opportunity to hear different voices, especially voices that like put in the work and stuff like that, it's like a Custo. Okay, a Custo is somebody who is very knowledgeable, very into sneakers, very sought after by a lot of different outside people to do specific things. And that's because Custo is very knowledgeable. He understands his stuff. He does his homework, his history, and he's safe. You know what? And there's nothing wrong with that. Being safe is perfectly fine because I understand that's what people look for. Me and George learned this a long time ago. Is that like it takes you use a bit of a risk if you want George and I to be a part, because like the first thing that I always tell people when I ask brands that want to do things, ads, networks, whatever our current network that we're on now, I believe, shout out to them. I said, you're not going to change us though. Like you can't change us because that's not the show. If you want me to be like, if you have this granular idea, and this is what I tell them, I say, if you have this granular idea that Nike is going to hit them up and want to work with the Believe network, if that's your goal, then you can't use us. Okay. Because you can't, because we'll give the good to Nike and we're going to give the bad to Nike. You can't use us if you think, and that's what a lot of people get into the podcasting and things like that for the wrong reasons. They don't want to express how they feel and how they really talk sometimes because they're so worried that Nike is going to hear them, or Nike is going to, oh, what if Nike don't want to send me a pair of sneakers one day, or Nike, man, it doesn't matter. One of the best moments of doing this podcast was one time I'm just chilling. I got a message in the chat on the sneakers app out of the blue. I've Out of the blue. A customer service message came to me. I didn't reach out to them. And it was somebody from the call center at Nike saying, yo, we listen to your podcast all the time, blah, blah. And I'm like, what the heck is this? Like, this is somebody saying, we listen, you guys are dope, blah, blah, blah. That was it. I said, oh, man, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. That was it. Came through the sneakers app, not through an email, not through nothing. I don't know who did it in there, whatever. That was dope to me. And I go, cool. They kind of understand it. They understand it. Look, you can't work for Nike or any of these brands. And when somebody says this suck, you can't be so oblivious to where you're like, stop it, man. Like, come on. If you get mad that we're like $300 is disgusting for something, you're blind to society. You're not paying attention. I also don't want to pay $14 for my steak burrito at Chipotle. Like, I don't want to do that. Like, I also don't want my oil changes now cost, I'm almost paying the same price on a Dodge Durango for an oil change as a BMW. Like, you're out of touch with the world and you're a consumer if you think that those type of things don't matter. Same thing with sneakerheads when it comes to content, okay? When I started making content, my memories and my voice and my thoughts and of sneakers made me want sneakers more. Wasn't like watching a video on YouTube, wasn't a picture, wasn't like, oh, uh Black Infrared 6s are coming out. No, it made me think of like why the Jordan Infrared Black 6 is my favorite sneaker of all time. That moment and how I got it. That's what started creating content. When I'm talking to you and other people and I started getting into these stories and I'm like, oh man, I forgot about that. Oh man, that's a good feeling and it makes me want more. And at the same time, you go, okay, you need to rein it in. Like you need to bring it in a little bit. There was a point in time on our podcast where we were out of control. I mean, we were talking crazy. Okay. I mean, those episodes are still on YouTube, but we were talking crazy. Okay. And I was like, okay, we got to develop some type of structure. And we would go in there with no structure, no topics, no nothing. All we had was a top 10 list. We would sit in that studio and talk crazy. Okay. And I used to be like, ugh. And after a while, once I started trying to develop that structure for it, I knew it kind of bothered George a little bit and Ryan when he was on the show at the time because they liked that whatever. And I was like, no, I want people to take us serious, you know, and at the same time appreciate us for who we are. You know what I mean? So
Yes, the authenticity of like who you are, like who I am as a creator is who I am when I'm in real life. Like I don't feel like the opinions or things that I say are not what I wouldn't do all the time. Like I enjoy diving into things. So I started, I was a marathon runner back in the day. Like I learned all the history about the Boston Marathon, what all that stuff, and I appreciated it. I got into boxing, and this is why I get triggered today when people come at me and say like Tyson Fury is the best heavyweight of all time, and I'm like, stop, just don't even with that,
right.
because you clearly haven't watched a boxing match prior to 2010, maybe.
Right.
So I feel like for me, content was like a good way to rein a lot of things in, but I always wanted to feel like, hey, if you don't like me, my voice, my opinions, that's okay. There's about 330 million people just in the United States alone, and you're gonna please everybody. But I put a lot of effort into the production because I don't want somebody to turn me off because I don't sound and look good. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that right to me too is like it sucks. If I could stop doing video, I would.
Yeah.
Video is the hardest part about doing a podcast. I can do the audio, make it sound better, and then load that up in minutes. Like that's a piece of cake. The video aspect of it is where like I'll have people be like, "Fam, you gotta get in 4K, buddy."
Who's paying for that?
Like, look, man, like, could I do that? Sure, but it's not a necessary thing for me. But man, I know some other podcasts, they're in 258K. Like, whatever you need, I know somebody who's got that, man. If that's for you, like, go ahead, man. I always encourage people to go listen to other things. Listen to us too, and then go listen to other things. You can hear the crazy stuff from us, and then you can get yourself back in home with somebody else, and then you can learn why you keep taking from L's from this other podcast, and you can hear the one thing I love about listening to other podcasts is that like I can hear where they're from, their region, their discussions, their thing from where they're from. I listened to a podcast where just a messages podcast. They're from South Carolina. I know nothing about the Carolinas. When they start talking about things and stories from that area, it makes me feel like, dang, maybe I'll go visit there one day. Maybe I'll go there. It does something when you can get something out of it, right? If I could bring a little bit of humor, and honestly, the podcast is to get people through their day, man. You at work all day, and you got some few out, you're driving in traffic, you're on the bus, you got your public transportation. Throw this on, listen to it, get through your day. You out there doing some manual labor, some hard work. You at your cubicle all day, man. Throw a podcast on, get through the day, and pull over. Some people are like, bro, your podcast is way too long. Buddy, you got 7 days in the week. Break it up. I'm not asking you to listen to this all at one shot. If you can, awesome. But listen to like 30 minutes here, hour here, next day, come back to it. That's what it's for. I've thought about that content creation of like, what, maybe our show's too long. Maybe I need to cut it down to 30 minutes. Maybe we need to like no longer do releases and pickups. Maybe we should just get straight to the topics, top 10 and go home. No talk. I've thought about that, but it's not me. Even my wife today, she doesn't understand why is it so long? Because once you get to talking and you get those memories and you get those feelings and that thought and you get like the ideas and you get the like, so many things come at you when you're really having a conversation with somebody and you're like, another thing. And also, you know what? You're right. To touch on that, you just get into it. That to me is a great conversation and a great podcast. If you just go, you got 30 seconds, go. And you just got to rattle off something. You don't get to rebuttal back. You don't get to say back. You don't get to agree, disagree. We don't get to align. It's just that to me is how a conversation works. When your wives and your girlfriends are arguing with you and they want to have that conversation, it's like, okay, you want to talk now, but it's like I'm doing the same thing with the homies, you know what I mean? So
No, it's true. And, when I came into the scene, like it's easier to have longer content when you have somebody else. So like the sports pod that I do with a guy from Illinois, we're longer because you can bounce ideas off each other, but we keep it very structured. We have like notes and things of like things we want to get to. But when it's just one voice, like Sockjig, I just actually discovered him the other day. Shout out to my boy KJ who got me onto him, and I'm like, this is extremely well crafted content, and it's way longer for my taste in terms of one voice. Like it's hard to keep people's attention with one voice. So in my mind, I'm like, how can I find a niche here? 20 minutes. I think people could listen to my voice for 20 minutes.
right.
But when I come on another pod, like, we're bumping up on 2 hours here, but it doesn't feel like it because you're bouncing ideas back and forth on each other. And I think you guys cornered a market in the sneaker content game, the indie sneaker content game. Like, we're not even gonna get into complex, but
Right.
of like, you guys fill that void of people who want to sound like they're talking to their homies. And so like somebody like me who came on, I didn't discover you guys until after I started this pod, but I would inform the direction of things that I wanted to do based off of like, you would say something and then it would challenge something that I thought already. And I'd be like, all right, let me think about that again. And let me sort of reinform how I feel about it. Let me go research it.
Yeah,
That's
and
rare, I think.
that's what I like to. I see people's topics and stuff on Twitter and social media, and I know it's based off of something they may have heard from us talk about, and they build on it. I'm okay with that. I'm fine. Back in the day, I used to be like, you're stealing from us, you're copying. But I'm like, I've grown up, like, you know what I mean? And people have told me like, oh yeah, I made this post about this. This post went viral because of I heard you guys talk about it, and I go, that's cool, man. Like, man, that's awesome. Like, hey man, whatever we can do to help, that's fine. But and I was wondering too. I was like, man, I wonder how Matt's gonna be able to handle recording 2 hours. I don't know how this is gonna go because I know you do a shorter platform, and I'm like, oh man, this may be too much for Matt. He may be like, I'm out of here.
No, because I started potting 4 years ago, and we've done 3-hour live streams for like the NFL draft. So like I've done remote, I've done a lot. Like I don't just have the 2 shows that I have. So like I have a lot of staying power. But I don't know if you've noticed, I don't know if you listen, but like the times when I've built on something you guys have talked about that I've taken an idea from, I pretty much shout you out every time. Like, oh, I was listening to Greg or I was listening to these guys and they said that, because it's important to me that people don't listen and think like, oh, it's important that it's like, hey, I listen to other content and that helps me, and here's how we're going to build on this. And it's important to give credit where credit is due. That's at least important to me. It's not important to a lot of other creators though.
Right. Yeah. And I've heard you do that many times, and I appreciate that. And I always try to make sure that I do the same whenever I do get those, those little nuggets from other people as well. You know what I mean? So, but like I said, man, we're all in the same thing out here. It's different voices, different understanding. As long as somebody can get something out of it and just get through the day, man. Like life is hard enough as it is, man. Like, when I go, like, I just ended coaching soccer for my son. Like I was coaching him since he's been 3 years old. He's now going somewhere else. He's on PSG club now, and I get to get me a nice chair, put it in the side, give me a nice little tent, and sit there and watch my son and put my AirPods in and listen to someone else while he's at practice or something else. And that's what I appreciate now. So I could get a bigger view and scope of like where things are right now. You know what I mean? And like even when like other podcasts, like new podcasts pop up and they come, and they'll like, so at some point somebody like, oh, they were talking junk about you, and I go, you know what, man, if that's fine. Back in the day, man, I've been in some of the most beefs and battles of all time doing podcasts, and it just became so taxing on me to where I was just like, what am I doing? Like I've gotten away from sneakers just to, we got to get on the episode so I can say this about them. And I'm like, oh man, let's bring it back. Like, I mean, Kais has done videos on us back in the day, like people have talked a lot of junk about us before, and because we honestly probably started most of it. And when other podcasts today come and they start to feel themselves, and I get it, like there are podcasts that like, they get a little traction and I'm like, oh man, happy for you. They like, yo, coming for you, Stink this, you suck, you duh. And I go, hey
Sure.
man, that's cool, man. If you need help, man, let me know if you need something. And I reverse it on them, because then they go, because most of the time I don't go listen to it, and I go, I'm pretty confident in it. They say I have an answer to, or they're just making this up, or they're taking something for surface level when it doesn't matter. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, but that's the thing. Like a lot of these other newer podcasts and things like that, I go, I know why you started a podcast. Like you saw us do it and we make it look easy, and it goes, you know what, I can do a better version of that, or I can do the same thing, and I'm all for it. That's good. You know what I mean? So shout out to all the podcasts, man. Like I got no hate for nobody. I want
Nope.
people to continue to do it. If you think you can start one now, cool. It's hard now with content creation right now, because when you start something this late in the game, you're gonna revisit and rehash everything that everyone's already talked about. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like I see newer podcasts come out and they got an episode on, what would you buy fakes? And I'm like, boy, you're way behind. Like,
Yeah, you are.
you
Yes.
you got some
Way, way,
catch.
way
Yeah,
behind.
you're way,
Not to mention that so many of those things are overplayed. But my favorite beef you've ever had is when you go out Welty, because I can't stand that guy on Complex. It's so
me and
good.
him going at it for so long on Twitter. I remember one time he was DMing me one time. I forgot what I said one time, and he DM'd me, and we were just going at it. And I really don't have a problem with him. Honestly, it got to the point to where I was just like messing with him at this point. But you know what? And I could even look back at myself and understand, like, you know, it's really hard when you create content. And I'll even talk about you. I mean, whatever cameras you use, everything you use is top notch. Okay. And you can see the effort that goes into it. And it would always bother me with Complex, and I hate bringing them Complex and other BR kicks and all this stuff, is that like they'll give these opportunities to people who I feel like haven't earned it. Like, because there's so many people you go, man, like they deserve an opportunity. Don't know if it'll work out. When Complex had Full Size Run, cool. You already got a show with these three people. And then they're like, all of a sudden they want to do a podcast now. And I go, that's fine. But I go, you didn't have anybody else that works at Complex you could have gave that opportunity to, or reach
Bothers
out
me
to
too.
another that has another platform that, like, you know what I mean? Like, our platform's already ready made. You ain't got to do nothing for me. You know, I may ask for a new laptop or something, you know what I mean? Like something to, like, whatever, maybe another camera or something. I made things like that, but like you don't even got to put forth the major effort you do into that. And that's why things like that on those networks and platforms don't last, because they put so much into things that are unnecessary. To have a whole set, like a set for Full Size Run, you're not gonna gain back what you think from having that. People forget Full Size Run used to actually be on TV at one point. It was on Fuse channel. It was on Fuse Network. You can go in at a certain time and watch Full Size Run on TV. And it was just like, this doesn't align with TV. It's not, you have to really understand and think about what you have. And then they put the same people from Full Size Run on the podcast. Yeah, you're just hoarding the opportunity from other people. You're not even thinking about, you didn't reach out to a Matt who's on the East Coast and say, yo, we like your content. Would you like to come in and do a podcast or do some You don't do that. You don't reach out to Sneak This and say, man, you guys have been doing it for a long. You don't reach out to Sneaker Box in Detroit. You don't reach out to anybody and say, you know what, we appreciate what you're doing for the culture. Would you be able to? You don't. They reach out to people for other reasons that are more self-serving to them. And
Clicks.
yeah, and I get it. I understand the business. I get it. But to me, that's what makes me get sour on the creation of content and stuff like that. I've thought about it many times. Should I just end the podcast and do a bunch of lives or 10-minute YouTube videos on, like, yo, check it out. You know, see here the traction, the laces, the back. Yo, these, should I do that? I
Nope.
thought about it. Should I? Yo, one thing I'll say about this, Jordan Brand, you killed it, bro. You killed it with this. How the foot feels in it, bro. When I put, should I do that and end the podcast? No, it's not me. There's lanes for that. There's plenty of things for that, and I understand it. You know what I mean? I had to learn and teach myself. All right, Greg, you're not, Nike's not calling. Adidas isn't calling. They're not gonna say, yo, we love a Nike podcast. Even if they did, would they allow me to say this Nike sucks? They wouldn't. I had to understand that. We've done stuff with GOAT before. We've done all these things before. And it's worked out good, it's worked out bad. They just didn't want to do their, anyways, that's another topic for another day. But that's what people need to understand when they create their own content, when they start something. You have to be cemented in what you want to do, and you have to be committed to making it better. Don't commit to making it change because you think it's not working for you. I'll listen to a podcast, they're on episode 2, and they're like, Nike, send the bag, Nike.
No,
Buddy,
never.
you're on episode 2, but what are you talking about? Send the bag. Like, you're not focused on what you need to do. Your only focus is I record Tuesday, I'm here Tuesday, 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 Tuesday. Consistent, consistent, consistent. Understand where I want to go with this and understand how I feel about it, and that's it. Once you start listening to DMs, cats be in the DMs, bro, for real, honestly, bro, love the show, but you need to cut it down. Buddy,
Thanks.
I got another podcast for you that's awesome, man. In 30 minutes, but I got one. Here's a link, buddy. Oh, well, I mean, I was just saying, like, I love the show. I was just saying, buddy, just enjoy the free show. It's free. You're paying
Yes.
$300 for Lightnings. It's free. Leave me alone. Like,
I So but we can get to the list after this because we're getting toward. I'm getting really. I feel like rocking chair or front lawn. Get off my lawn at this point. But
I
at the
know.
same time, though, like when people come at me, there's like a threshold of comments that I will even respond to when
Right.
they are usually. And this is such a dick move of me to do. But when people are like, bro, your content stinks, and I'm like, yeah, send me a link to the content that you make. I need to figure out, kind of how it's done. I want to get some, and I come at them with this whole thing about how I want to learn, blah, blah, blah. Silence, because you don't have a channel. You don't put out content. You have no idea what it means. And I don't even get at them. This is free. Like, it's a labor of love for me. Like the equipment that I have, I know you said it was top notch, but like I've gotten that over time. Like
Right.
you bought cameras a long time ago and they work for you. Why would you spend money to upgrade? I bought what I didn't have at the
Right.
time. And like I do photography on the side. So
Right.
I have lenses to go along with that. So like there's a whole bunch of stuff that like presented itself to me. I didn't just go out and like drop 10 grand and like, whoops, we're going to
Right.
retrofit out a whole studio. Like I started over there in the corner in this room on a TV tray with a $10 Amazon mic and a 7-year-old laptop. It sounded horrible.
Right.
I sounded horrible. I have that picture somewhere because that's where you start. And now I can have 3 people up in this room and we can do full everything. And so you're welcome for that. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of how I feel. And so when you're like, it's not very good, well, guess what? I'm sleeping fine at night. Move on.
And that's the thing. Like people would be like, I remember, I look at the reviews sometimes on like some of the platforms, and like some people will go, man, George and Greg, they used to kill it, but now it's kind of gone downhill. Well, did you leave a comment when we were killing it? Like, what
Nope.
did you leave a review when we were killing it? Why 300 episodes later now you're like, I don't know. But then I go, that's just today. Because
Mm-hmm.
for every one person, I gain 2 people. For any 10 listeners I lose today, I gain 10 more. And that's just the way it goes. The thing is that I want people to understand is that like you can always count on us. When you can count on us. When I get people like, fam, when our house was flooded during the floods in Houston, we were listening to you because like we didn't know what to do, and like you got me through it. Fam, when I was on this bus because I got sent to another area because I got fired. I was on the subway stopped in New York and we were trapped under. I listened to you the entire time. Fam, that makes me feel good. And
Yes.
guess what? It's free and you can always count on us. So you can count on us. You can count on us. That's all it is. So
That
anyway,
is all it is. Speaking of things you can count on, my list is going to be vastly inferior to yours, just so
I
you
don't know
know.
why you say that because my list, I don't know. You do the research and the history behind it.
Mm.
So my
This was hard because I had like we were out yesterday and you're like, hey, let's do a top 10 sneakers with a story. And I was like 2 beers deep and I'm like, oh, okay. With the family. So my wife's like, what you doing over there? And I was like, looking at goat. She's like buying stuff. And I was like, nah, no, research. Anyway, so
so
go ahead.
So now, typically, I know you said like you had some honorable mentions like George, and I used to always have honorable mentions all the time. But I stopped doing honorable mentions because it made me. The one thing I wanted to always test for myself when I made my list was my own knowledge and from what I wanted to pull from it. Because like I would go through Gold and StockX and stuff, and I would do a lot of research. I separate by years and stuff like that. And certain topics I have to do that. But then when I was thinking about this, because like like the last episode you did, like well, the one you did where you talk about like Jordan and his mom and things like that, where you talked
Yeah.
about the history, I started going back to like the history from what I know about then, and also growing up and pulling into it. We're doing top 10 sneakers. I don't know how to title top
Sneakers
10.
with a story is what I wrote down.
Yeah, sneakers with the best stories to us.
To
Whatever.
us. Yes.
Whether it's a personal story or whether or not it's an actual history of the story of the sneaker, like I got a mix of it. But like I have no honorable mentions, and I know you said you do, right?
So I do, but I only will give you one, and I'll give you some of the others after we both give our list, just because they're on here. But there's one I want to mention because it's a personal story for me. So while it was do you remember the Kobe, the crazy one, like the very,
Yep.
they just kind of re-released it sort of, the Stormtrooper one. The reason why that is an honorable mention for me is because summer of 2001, 2, and 3, I worked at Sports Authority and I worked in the footwear department there. And we had a basketball aisle. And like most people never went into the basketball aisle, but right at the end of the basketball aisle was that white Kobe. And it was sitting there and it was 200 maybe. Like it was expensive. I remember back in the day. and I had a 20% discount, and I was like, ooh, can I get it? And I just never did. And so I put it on here because they retroed it, and I had this, like, as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh man, I'm back wearing the black polo shirt with the name tag on, looking at that thing for years or however long it was sitting there. And so I put that on there. But my list for real is all right, number 10. So
Go first. All right, go first.
oh, go ahead. So you want me to go first, or you want to go first?
Go ahead. Guess
right.
first.
All right, I'm gonna go with the. And I hear my kids screaming downstairs, so I'm sure my wife's having a great time. But here we go. The number 10, the D Brown Pump Omni Light.
That's a great one.
And the reason it's on there is because that was the first shoe I ever really wanted. And my parents were like, absolutely not, for years. And I think it was like 1995. My mom finally broke down and got me a pair of pumps. I pumped those things so many times it popped. Like, I just was all over it. I love that shoe.
You know, people forget like those eras of like, because the gimmicks are different now. You know, you got a shoe now where like back then it was the pump, then there was like LA Gear with lights, then it was like 3M on a sneaker, it was like glow in the dark, like it was all these gimmicks. But like the pump, even with the air bubble shocks, you know, Nike shocks, that was a gimmick. The pump, when D Brown was in the dunk contest and he stood over there and he bent down and he pumped them both up, it made you think like, I need these so I can jump higher. It does something. It just filled up the tongue with a little bit of air and made the shoe tighter. It didn't do anything.
Nope.
But that's a great one for this list. That's a good one.
I love it. So, and the dunk contest used to be a must-watch television, appointment television back then. It's not now. Hot take, but anyway, we move on.
Right.
Number 9 is also from a dunk contest, but I love this shoe just because of the story. I think it's the same as the White Cement 3, but the free throw line, Jordan 3.
Yep.
Because Jordan dunking from the free throw line was a moment. And the shoe's fire. Like, I think it's undoubtedly fire. I like the White Cement more than the Black Cement, which is probably borderline hot take, but I like that one just because it speaks to a specific moment, and it's easy, it's cliche, but dunk contest meant something, and from the free throw line, that definitely meant something back then. So I like that shoe.
Good one.
Number 8. This one might get a little grown here, but I will explain. The Off-White Jordan 5, the black colorway, which I think was supposed to be after the metallic 5.
Huh?
Reason that's on there is because it's the first time I remember Virgil being part of the marketing for it, and he kind of talked about how this was one of the shoes he remembers from childhood. And so it kind of gave it a little bit more depth. I wasn't as big of a fan of that shoe as I was like some of the other stuff from the 10, but I appreciated at least them going into why this shoe looked this way and why this particular shoe was used this. It wasn't just a Off-White's going to go through every Jordan from 1 to 7 and we're just going to call it a day. I felt like it got a little bit more explanation, and I think putting that effort really made me appreciate it a little bit more. So that's why it's on there. Number 7, this is probably a weird one for a story, but the McFly Dunk Low. So Back to the Future was the first movie I ever saw in theaters, and Back to the Future 2 is a movie that I could watch forever. It's clean, but I love the nods to it, and it just speaks to a time that I remember very, very fondly. So that's why that's on there.
Yep.
Number 6. This one probably doesn't have a story, but it does to me. The blue colorway of the Sacai LD waffle, the first one, or one of the first 2. I remember, first of all, I love that because they used the waffle, which I don't know how many people at that time remembered the waffle and the history with it. So I thought that was really cool. It was something they'd never done. But I remember watching, I think it was NFL Draft, and Marcus Mariota was up on the stage with them on. They hadn't released yet. And I was like, whatever he has, I have to have. They were hot. Oh, God, do I love those. They're perfect. Number 5. So this is kind of out there, but it speaks to my New England roots. It is the New Balance 997. I think it's the S Rook. I don't know if you remember these.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So special. We talked special boxes earlier. The No Net. The Babe Ruth trade, all that stuff. The Red Sox winning the World Series in 2004 was the best sports moment of my life. It won't ever be eclipsed. And so that shoe, fire, pink, bright, because we talked about the New Balance, but man, the touches to all the history about the Babe Ruth trade, the curse. I mean, it speaks to my New England heritage. So how could I not put it on the list?
I can't remember if those were out when we had Dion from Concepts on our show.
Yeah.
So I don't remember if we asked him about those, but yeah, I mean those are beautiful. Like those are a great shoe. And Concepts has always been neither one or number two in their collaborations and things like that. And even if, like you said, that Boston Red Sox moment, even if you weren't a Boston Red Sox fan, it was like everybody was just finally waiting for it.
Oh,
with them and the
yeah.
cuts and things like that. It's like it's like you're waiting for it. You know what I mean? So
And you know how we talked about people not appreciating the past? Like I can't stand Boston sports fans now, despite being kind of one of them. But I was in college when they won that World Series, and when I came home for Thanksgiving that year, the first thing I did was go to my grandfather's gravestone because he never got to see it. He died
right.
2 years prior, and it meant something because my dad's dad never got to see it. And I think a lot of people have forgotten that now in Boston, which is why I feel the way that I feel about their sports fandom. But that moment, a shoe capturing that in a way that was not overtly Red Sox, but spoke to the history, had to put it on the list. It's just, I don't know. I'll never own them, but they are beautiful. All right. So number 4 is a Jordan 1, and it's I struggled with which one to put on here because I feel like Jordan 1s have a lot of stories and all that stuff, but I actually put the Lost and Found on here, and the reason being is because they actually went the distance in telling a story of a shoe being collected and being old. Like it wasn't just a retro of the Chicago, because like the story of the Chicago has been told so often through the movie Air and everything. Like it's almost cliche to put it on here, but I thought the execution was really good on it. And I loved speaking to a time that a lot of people who were buying that shoe probably don't even remember, like a mom and pop store. Love that.
I remember when me and my friends, like we would like, go to the movies and stuff like that. And this is back when like mom and pop stores used to also be included in the bigger sort of shopping mall areas. It wasn't all just commercial stuff that used to be in those spots. And I remember we would go into those spots and just sort of look around. And I remember finding, original Jordan 2s. And this is like 97, things like that. And we're like, what the heck? These suck. We're like, the Jordan, this is the originals. You know what I mean? And finding stuff like that, even like to this, probably as of like probably like 5 years ago, we used to have a store out here called, I can't remember what it was called, but they had 3 locations, and George and I would go in them every once in a while, and like people wouldn't like go into them. They just wouldn't. And I'm like, I'm sorry, why do you guys have Olympic 7 still? And I'm like, I'll take 3, please. And George found like Terminators for the Arizona Wildcats. Like it was just like Griffies that were still in there. And we're like, what is going on? Like, but shout out to the mom and pops, man.
Yeah, that's why I picked it. And number 3 for me kind of speaks to a similar thing, the Air Max 90 Bacon, because Dave's Quality Meat, that was a unique retail experience. Like it spoke very New York. When you went in there, it didn't look like what today, like, and I know that today's sneaker consumer wants like a luxury experience. Like when you walk in like a Kith and stuff like that, it's like you feel a different way. But that shoe was fire. Unfortunately, the re-release or the retro of it, the quality of it wasn't as good consistently across the board. But I just loved the story of the shop that went with it. And like, while there was a lot of other like bacon colorways after that, it didn't capture the magic of the first one. And unfortunately, that shop is dead now, which speaks to where we are in the retail space. Like these shops they don't exist anymore. And that one was very unique, especially for the time.
Yep.
All right, number 2. This one's probably an obvious one, but the original Staple Pigeons. I mean, fire shoe. The release speaks for itself. Like I don't know what it was like back then. You were part of it, but I had this vision of like middle-aged white guys who didn't know what sneakers were, like opening their newspaper and seeing these headlines and being like, what is all this about? Not understanding what was going on. And when I think back to the history, it almost like outed what all of you already knew about what sneakers was about. And it made it to a place where it was like, now it's hiding in plain sight instead of being this sort of underground thing. And while Jeff Staple and all that stuff is totally played out today, and it is what it is, that original shoe, it was perfect for what it was in the moment. But the release, the story behind it, so many people have stories of trying to getting there. And as you said, stores lying and just so many things.
Like it was, just that era of when you would have to go outside and do things like that to get sneakers. You know, it was the lack of knowledge in doing so. You didn't know how many sneakers the store had. Like you knew you were like number 500 in line, but you didn't get out. Like you didn't know. You know what I mean? Like I've been in so many sneaker lines and campouts, and like the store people will come out and say like, we only got 20 pairs. Even though I was 40 in line, I was like, nah, I don't know if I believe him, and I'd still stay overnight. You know, and a lot of people, you know, like you said, probably the next day after that, or that whole, like, it was probably mind blowing to people who just weren't involved with that. It's just like even when like me and George were going to camp out in places and be in line, people would walk by like, what are you guys doing out here? What is this? What's going on? Like, why are you here? We would be inside the malls when like the old people would go to the mall before they open and walk around to get their
Yeah.
exercise. So they'd be walking around over our bodies and stuff like, why are you in here? Because we had to get inside the mall by any means necessary. Like we would sneak in. I would sneak in with the janitorial people. They had a special back door for employees, and I would sneak in that way and go through the hallways of the mall. And I would chill in the hallways of the mall until a certain time, and then come out and get inside the mall because security would kick you out. Like there's a lot of things that go. See that those are the memories right there. I'm like, man, boy, those are some good old times. Like
Mm-hmm.
crazy times, man. But
Absolutely. And my number one is my number one shoe of all time. It just happens to have a really great story, and that is the Black and Red 4, which I bought the reimagined of. Um, Always loved the shoe, and it was kind of put me on the map in terms of basketball. Like I was just old enough to kind of understand what I was watching, and it was always a shoe I wanted, but kind of left my space until the Nike Pump came around. And so that's why it's number one on my list, because it's obviously a great shot. It's an iconic moment.
oh, yeah.
Jordan elevated himself at that point, because remember, it had taken him a while to kind of get over that hump. And you think
Yeah.
about that now, it's like everybody remembers Jordan as 6 championships, never lost. And it's like, it was a good stretch of time where he was finding his feet in the league.
Oh yeah. And that was the thing too that like made Jordan who he was, is that like he was determined to find his, you know what I mean? Like he was determined to figure it out. Some of these like new athletes nowadays, they're like, you know what? I can't figure this out. Maybe if I go to another team, I can figure it out there. Maybe if you bring in another star with me, I can figure it out. Like he naturally let it happen. His goal was him. How can I be better me to make everybody a better them? Today's team is like, you know what? I'm as good as I'm gonna get. You're gonna have to bring in another person with me. You know, bring in another with me, and we're just gonna hopefully have to. And that people will never understand that. They just will never understand that. That's a good list, man. I like that list, man. That's a good
I
list.
appreciate that. I appreciate that. A
All
little
right.
cliche, but it
No,
is what it is.
I actually have some similar things on my list of the same thing. So for me, I got number 10 is my list, top 10 best stories to me. I got number 10, I got the Air Mag. Okay. Now,
Oh, yep. Mm-hmm.
I would never in a million years put the Air Mag on any list because it's one of those unobtainable, impossible sneakers that unless you're filthy rich to own or incredibly fiscally irresponsible. Um, but when I think of stories, it's like you said, going back in time, like going to the movies and watching a movie was such a moment. Like the best movie to me is where like I either feel stressed, I feel excited, I feel happy. You know, when you're watching a movie and you find yourself smiling and you don't even realize it, those are the best movies. Okay. Seeing a Nike lace up itself and about the future, it was incredible. It was legit incredible. And you know, it made you think like, what if? Like, what if they come out with this one day? I remember when it was like New Year's Eve, like 1989, and I was with my mom, and I was like, man, cars in 2000, imagine we'll be flying. You know, you just really don't have a real grasp of like reality. But I used to be like, man, what if? And of course they did, which I was very highly disappointed in. I understood it doing an auction and stuff like that for Parkinson's and things like that. I get that. But it removed that feeling of like when I saw it as a kid and was like, man, like I feel like I should be able to have an opportunity to own that history too. Like, come on. Like to me, there's no reason why nobody shouldn't be able to own a Jordan 1 black red.
Yeah.
Like there's no reason. Why can't I be a part of that history? And Air Mag, you're gonna make a Jordan 11 that ties itself up, self-lacing. you can make some mags for the rest of us. You know what I mean? Not everything, certain moments, but anyways.
Air Mag was on my honorable mention, by the way.
Yeah, like, and and I typically wouldn't put something on a sneaker on a list that's $25,000, but you know what I mean. Like,
I do.
It's about the movie, it's about the feeling. Number nine, I got the Jordan 10 double nickel. You want to call it double nickel, the 45 when Jordan came back from out of retirement. People really don't understand how big of a moment that was when he came back that game against the Pacers. You want to talk about, I mean, the lead up to it, the cameras following him through the tunnel, seeing I think he drove a black Ferrari. I think maybe that's what he drove in, a Corvette. I can't remember. To the arena, like it was such a moment to see Jordan come back on the court, and he was wearing number 45, and he was wearing the Chicago 10. It's Chicago 10, but double nickel. That was a moment, like holy smokes, like he's back. That quote, he's back. I'm
back.
Come on, I'm back. Come on, man. Like, you really have to be there. And you knew the hopes and dreams of everybody else in the Eastern Conference was done.
It died.
It died because when Orlando finally got to the finals against Hakeem that was going to be their only chance at it. And then they couldn't even accomplish them because then you got the Rockets in the East out here winning 2 in a row during that span, and you're like, oh my gosh, like nobody in the Eastern Conference won a championship when Jordan was out for that little period of time. Crazy, all right.
It also crushed the New York Knickerbockers' chances to the point, you know what I mean? Like, who?
Oh gosh, but when he came back, in that 45, come on, we wanted a 45 jersey.
I had one.
Everybody, we had to. All right. Number 8. This one's a little bit out there, it's a little bit different. I got the Reebok Shaqnosis. Okay. The Reebok Shaqnosis, and this is because we talked about it earlier with the Hardens being visible on the court. Shaq wore like a size 22 or something back then. Maybe other players maybe wore a bigger size too as well, but we're talking about Shaq here. Shaq was one of the biggest humans that anybody had ever seen. When you watching TV and you could see the hypnosis swirls on the Shaqnosis, what are those? I need them. Glimpses, you could see glimpses, photos, things like that. But on the court, it don't matter where you at. You could be in your living room. I was in Oregon at the time. Lived in Salem, Oregon at the time, and watching Orlando, and I could see the swirls and the story of it being because of the Twilight Zone. A lot of people don't know this as well, and I think I talked about this probably episode 30. There was only one color of Shaqnosis. Only one. Wasn't 2, wasn't 3, wasn't 4. They didn't make other colors of the Shaqnosis until it retroed. There was one. If you didn't get that one, that was it. They didn't like keep retroing it out or nothing like that. There was that one at the time. Then eventually they came out with retros and other versions of colors and things like that. But if you understand that hypnosis swirl, that Twilight Zone,
I can see it.
Twilight Zone, It's only one. I don't need a red blue version of the swirl. No, white and black. That's all it is. They didn't even come out with like a reverse of the hypnosis, like the swirls black and the shoe white, because it's already kind of like that. It's such a great shoe, and it has it's just great. Number nine, we're gonna go back. Oh, I'm sorry.
8.
No, 7.
Oh, wait.
10,
you're right. Air Mag. Yep.
10 Air Mag, 9 double nickel, 8 Shaqnosis, number 7 Space Jam 11.
I thought about that one too.
Everybody, a lot of people forget this, right? I thought about putting the Concorde on it, but I didn't because people forget this. The Concorde, you can just walk in the store and buy it. People thought the Concorde 11s were so ugly. They thought they were tap dancing shoes. There were 2 people in my entire school that had them. Me and a kid named Jordan. His name was Jordan. He bought all the Jordans. We were the only 2. We got made fun of so much in the cafeteria. Tap dancing shoes, look at those. You used to be able to go inside Mervyn's, J.C. Penney's, and buy Concords off the wall. So I didn't use it, but the Space Jam. The movie Space Jam is just an iconic movie. You watch it today, you're like, boy, this didn't age well. But you know what?
No.
Kids love it, whatever.
That's all that matters.
Fire. Seeing a Jordan, that may be one of the first times you saw something that didn't come out in the store. Like, you couldn't get it. Like, that was Jordan's. Like, you know what I mean? And then when they finally retroed it after that, it was a must cop at that point in time because it's an iconic colorway. It's fire. And that became from the movies, from watching the cinema, a movie. You saw something. a lot of Nikes and stuff weren't in a lot of movies. Like, you got Forrest Gump, you got Back to the Future, you got He Got Game. There's a Goonies. There's a few movies that like really showed Nikes, but come on, man, like that was iconic, man.
Love it.
Number. Oh shoot, what did I write?
6.
Yeah, I'm on 6, but that isn't the right one. Oh no, please don't tell me I got my list mixed up. Oh, come on, Greg. Number 6, I got the. What is this? Oh, you know what? Here's my paper right here. Sorry, let me see my 6 real quick. Boy, I was writing this out fast. I was thinking off the top of my head. Number 6, I got one and Sorry, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about this. I don't know where I got lost at. Oh, there it is. Sorry. Number 6. This is for me personally. All right. Living in Oregon at the time, we used to root for the Seattle Supersonics and stuff like that. Gary Payne was one of my favorite, but I got the Nike Zoom glove. Okay, the glove was so dramatically different from a lot of shoes that we had seen. All the laces, everything was hidden. You zipped it all the way up to the top, and it was just a big shroud. Okay, his name was the Glove.
Loved
like
it.
defense. The shoe was wrapped up like a glove. It just made so much sense. Not the easiest shoes to hoop in and play in. Like you had to leave them unzipped to really play in them because it was sort of a funky feel to it. And they had this technology which essentially probably did nothing, but it was called the monkey paw. And it was like a monkey paw inside the shoe, and it was like a swirl hand. And they called it the monkey paw. When you unzipped it, you could see it. Actually, you know what? You couldn't see it. It was hidden under the shroud. But me and my friend's dad was a doctor, so he always had scalpels around. I don't know, very irresponsible. We were kids. Had scalpels. We cut on the side of the Zoom glove. We cut the leather shroud off so you could see the monkey paw, and it was a green, vibrant monkey paw. If you pressed it really hard, you could feel it and see it, but you couldn't see it unless your shoe got dirty. So we got a scalpel, cut that piece off, and you could see our monkey paw when you zipped it up. You could on the black version it was red, and on the white version it was a lime green.
Ooh.
One of my favorite shoes of all time.
Love it.
Number 5, I got the red toe Question Iversons. I mean, that shoe itself was just, we loved it. We loved Iverson. But the most iconic moment with that shoe was when he crossed up Jordan at the free throw line. It wasn't necessarily like, oh my God, he really crossed him, because Jordan was an elite defender. What it was showed like how fearless Iverson was. Like, it was like, we're talking about Jordan here. Like, everybody, it's like you got a moment where you're like, I got an opportunity to go one-on-one with him, and I get to use my move on him. Jordan had the fadeaway, used to dunk. Man, he hit him with that boom, 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 boom crossover. Jordan went the other way, hit that free throw. Now, if he would have missed it wouldn't have mattered. If he would have missed that shot, but he made it. And I just remember like that was the red toe was in that moment referred to it, and we were like, this Iverson guy is, he's here. You know what I mean?
Unapologetically himself, which I always loved about him.
Unapologetic. I wish a lot of players like that we talk about. You got your John Stocktons, you got your Reggie Millers, Patrick Ewings, I wish all of them got to at least get one championship. Barkley, at least one, you know what I mean? But man, that era was so hard,
Crowded. Yeah. I mean, it's like every golfer who couldn't win because Tiger was winning all the time.
Yes, it's like, holy smokes, like, because crazy is now that Tiger is like obviously not good at all, you're just seeing such a bigger field of golfers right now where you're like, man, like he's good. You're like, you're not too sure. Now there's some that are consistently better than others, but like still you're like, you never know. You got certain ones to root for. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
Number four is it may be my favorite sneaker of all time. You know what I mean? But it's the AirTech Challenge 2. And you got to really understand why it's such an important sneaker, because it's a tennis sneaker. It's
Yes.
not a trainer, not a basketball sneaker. It's a tennis sneaker. A tennis sneaker has always been conservative, all right? Very conservative. All white, low top. You wouldn't notice it if it came down. That's where the term comes from, tennis shoes. People, older people will say, oh, your tennis shoes. Because,
my mother-in-law.
yeah, like tennis shoes is what it was referred to, was tennis. very conservative, typically all white, very little color. You got a guy like Andre Agassi coming in out of nowhere, right? Coming in and good, not just different, but good. He's got the mullet, the long hair, the headband, and then his sneaker comes out for Nike and it's hot pink lava. It got pink on it, and it's more of a high top cross trainer to really, fam, people really don't understand that time because you could go to any of your homies' houses. Any house had older brothers, your homies, anybody's house you go to, and people had posters. Remember posters? You hang a poster on the wall.
Oh
It was
yes.
awesome to
Oh
get.
yeah.
You used to get posters for your birthday, like a poster. You know what I mean? Not many people had Jordan posters, but if they did, they always had the same one. But everybody had a Just Do It poster. We had Bo Jackson, Andre Agassi. Like the appreciation of other sports back in the day with Nike was extremely high. It wasn't just about your lifestyle and certain basketball players. Man, a Agassi poster with the racket, and then they came out with the clothes, the AirTech Challenge clothes to go with it. That was unheard
Yes.
of. Like, come on. And the clothes were stupid fire. Like, I go back and I research on eBay and stuff looking for those clothes. Man, this polo is like 400. Like, it's such a rare thing. But that AirTech Challenge, and they haven't even come out with the low tops yet. I don't know when Nike plans on coming out with the AirTech Challenge 2 low tops, but they need to hurry up. All right.
Yes.
Because it's iconic. I got at least 8 pairs of AirTech Challenge 2s. It is just, you can do everything in it, but people just don't realize that era, man. Like Agassi was good too. Um, Number 3, I got the Jordan 1 bread. I mean, black red. I mean, the story about his mom with Adidas and all that stuff is just, it's an iconic story. You know what I mean? Um, I remember my dad specifically saying those are ugly. You know, as I got older, he used to consider all Jordans ugly because they were black and red, because of the color. You know, the fact that like nobody else was doing like team matching sneakers when Jordan had to come out with black and red. The Bulls are black and red. It was like, hold on, buddy, who do you think you are?
Yes.
It's crazy. But Jordan is the start of the real signature sneaker. Other athletes, you know, they had Converse weapons and stuff like that. That was considered like the Larry Birds and the Magic Johnsons. But the real signature sneaker, your name on it, Air Jordan is iconic. Like the wings, then eventually to the Jumpman logo, like people just don't realize. And then the movie Air does a great job of depicting it and stuff for those who aren't aware. But man, it just really set things off from there.
Sure
And
did.
people, and you know what? People like to say like they like to pick their own logos. What's the favorite logo? Signature sneaker logo. I like a lot of other signature snow, but nothing will surpass the Jumpman logo to me. I don't care, man. Like
Perfect.
it may be classic. You may even say it's playing out or whatever, but it's classic, man. And it's him. You know,
Yes.
you could do the dunk man with LeBron. You could do all that. No, 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 no. Jordan legs. Stop.
Not
Stop
to
it.
mention they created it. I mean, I don't think a lot of people remember that Jordan signed with them, but then when the two came out, it was like a total disaster. And
Oh yeah.
so the Jumpman logo was Nike's attempt at being like almost rebranding the Air Jordans for him again to get him back in. So it did a lot, not just being classic, but it saved a lot of things.
Oh yeah. That's a 100% fact. Um, Number 2. Um, and this may be probably a little high, but it really, honestly, it isn't. You know, I
To
think
you.
to me, I got the Galaxy Phone Posit. Um, Man, like set the world on fire. It is the Galaxy pack overshadowed the All-Star game. Like the biggest thing about that weekend was the Galaxy pack, not the All-Star game, not the All-Star weekend. It was the Galaxy pack. Riots, fights broke out across the country for these. And here's the thing why, and what this is why I picked the Galaxy Foam just by itself, because like I said, that weekend, and that's because the All-Star game was in Florida and it was like from near the Kennedy Center, you know, NASA and all that stuff, whatnot, Kennedy Space Center, whatever it is. So they had a Galaxy Space theme. About 11 to 12 different models came out that weekend. Like it was dunks. There were like 3 dunk colorways, Air Flight 1s like in 2 colorways. There were the Galaxy KDs, the Kobe's. It was so many things that had came out during that time. And I always think to myself, what if the Galaxy foam wasn't included in that? Because the Galaxy foam was the one. That was the one everybody wanted. Everything else was a consolation prize. Yes, we like the LeBron. Yes, we like the KD. Yes, we like the Kobe. Yes. But the main goal of that weekend was the Galaxy foam posits. Okay. If you've ever seen one in person, honestly, it sucks. It's just like blow dry wrap around a foam posit. It's faded. It's not as vibrant as you would think based on pictures, but we had to have it. People were camped out weeks out here in Arizona for it. Wasn't getting it. You know what I mean? We luckily got our hands on like some Kobe's or something like that, but like those were like the times of like we had the raffle in our Nike when Nike Scottsdale had a Nike store. They were standing on top of the stairs reading off ticket numbers, and we were all down in a pit like this with our tickets, like this, looking up. It was such a crazy time, and that pack right there was so iconic, and it was so strong that Nike didn't know how to handle packs after that. We haven't seen any all-star packs or great ones after that. They tried to keep it going. They had a gumbo pack when it was in New Orleans. They had an alien like Area 51 pack when it was in Houston. I think that's where it was. Like they tried, it just didn't hit off like that one. Crazy. And people, you really don't understand if you were there. It was such a crazy time. And then number one for me, I got the Jordan 6 Black and Red. I talked about the story numerous times on the podcast. This was my very first Jordan I owned. I went back and got fours and I think threes at the time, and that's because like you could back then. But the Jordan 6, I was into sports, you know what I mean? But like I was at a bedtime, and the only way I knew I can guarantee is stay up late is if I tell my dad I want to watch the game with him. He wouldn't let me stay up late on a school night unless I was doing something he wanted to do, and he was watching Lakers Bulls, and obviously we lived in LA at the time. And I'm like, no, Dad, I really want to watch this game. Oh, all right, come stay with me in the recliner, and we watched it. And I had seen Jordan play before many times, but I just didn't pay attention to it like I did in that game. That game right there, I'm technically rooting for the Lakers because we're in LA, but I'm really watching the game focused. I'm not. I'm like, holy smokes, this cat is unbelievable. Seeing it live, and what's funny is me, George, and some of us, we always joke like I saw it live. You know, somebody like, yo, did you see this dunk? I saw it live because people just don't see stuff live anymore.
Yes.
Seeing Jordan jump in the air, switch hands, under, throw it up in the black infrared 6. I saw it live. You know what I mean? You can watch the video, you can watch YouTube, you can watch the commercials. I saw it happen. Jaw dropped. Uh, I don't even know if he really had to do that, but it was beautiful. Winning his first championship in those, my dad goes, I'm buying you those. That's how I got my very first Jordan. I'm buying those. And I was like, oh, okay. I remember my mom and my dad arguing for weeks because I think they were like $39 at that time. That was a lot of money for a kid. They argued for like 2 weeks about him spending that much money on those Jordans for me. And it was all downhill from there once I got that first pair. Because then at that time I had to get the fives and stuff like that. And the reason I had to get the fives is honestly a crazy story. You know what I mean? It's like, one of my friends, well, he isn't my friend, but like, this was when people being shot for sneakers and stuff like that. It's a bad thing, but the story behind that too is crazy. People were shooting people for Jordans. And I remember somebody that we knew got shot for their Jordan 5s. And I remember the first thing I thought, is he okay? Cool. But what was he wearing? Because if you're willing to get shot for those, I need a pair. And that's how I went back. I got metallic 5s. Like the stories that I have with sneakers is much different than a lot of other people, but that's what was part of it. You know what I mean? And it just takes you back. That's the content creating. I'm talking about this. I'm like, I may wear metallic 5s today. Like, I may pull out the infrared 6 today, man. Like I may have to pull that out today because I may wear my red toe Iversons today just to walk around the house in them. You know what I mean? That's what sneakers is about and content creation for me. So that's my list. I like my list. I think it's a good list. So I thought your list was great too. Like it was a good list.
My list feels like something that somebody who is relatively new to the culture would make. But I also tried to give it a personal touch for me. But like a lot of the ones you named, because I don't know. I mean, this list is quite long. All of these are just suggestions before I get to the actual list. So I probably have 50 shoes on here that were in consideration just because there's so many to choose from. And one of the things I love about a good top 10 list is it creates what I call faux controversy, because you rank things of anything. Like I went into work one time and I was like, and I knew it was going to happen. I'm like, blueberry muffin, king of all the muffins. And I just left. And people were like, what are you talking about? Like, follow me down the hall. And I'm like, see, I know how this works. Like, you just say something's the best, people can follow you.
Oh, 100%. And that's how we're like, people will get on here and be like, you don't got this, buddy. That could make it too. Or they're like, oh, you have that way too high, way too low. I'm like, buddy, it doesn't matter. It's okay. But I like the discussion of it, man. So
I think was it Rico who was like, I think he had the Curry dunk as like his best of all time. And like somebody commented, they're like, best of all time. And he's like, did I stutter? And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, people, hey, if you can stand on it, man, you can stand on it, man. 10 toes
Absolutely.
down. So. But man, I appreciate you doing this pod with me today, man.
Hey, I appreciate you having me on here. And you thought I couldn't last? Here we are. Almost 3 hours.
3 hours? Oh, my God. Yeah. Matt, I appreciate you. Anytime you want to come on, obviously we do. I love the conversation, man. You do a great show. Keep doing what you're doing, man. Anybody listen to my podcast, man, listen to the Matt's podcast, man. Fire Footwear. I mean, it's a great podcast to get perspective and additional knowledge and understanding. It's 30 minutes typically digest. It's not too long, you know what I mean? It's something that you hear clear, concise understanding on sneakers and history. You get an understanding of Matt's personality, and it's just a dope show.
Hey, look, anytime you and George are out in the DMV, which I realize doesn't happen very often, let me know. Love to meet with some folks.
I'm trying to get out to that area this summer. I'm trying. So
good. And if I'm ever in Phoenix, I'm gonna roll by the studio.
Oh no, that's 100%. So I appreciate you, Matt. Thank you.
You got it. Thanks a lot, buddy.
All right, have a good one, man.
You too.